Oh, well, we're live.
Wow,
Hello,
that was quick.
everybody. Welcome to You Can't Make This Shit Up. Take it away, guys.
Hey, wow, that was the quickest intro that we've had ever. But hey,
New record.
this is You Can't Make This Shit Up. I am your co-host, David Washington of J in Washington here in Central Florida. And my co-host is Joel Hawksley. Say hello, Joel.
Hello, everybody, from beautiful Central Florida. Uh, Welcome to the GOP debate. This is my family, so please be respectful for my for our second tier candidates. This is our associate. We have Kellen Clark. Kellen Clark here. We have Dan. Dan, I'm not gonna butcher your last name.
Yeah, Dan had to step away. He'll be back with us, our
Yeah.
other associate here at J in Washington. However, we do have a special guest with us, Dr. V. Isa White, a celebrated author, uh, world citizen, coach, a very well. Let's just say he is also a candidate for Congressional District 10 here in Florida. And I'll let Dr. White kind of take it from here. Welcome, Dr. White.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Washington, Joel, and Albert, and
Kellen.
Kellen. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of your dynamic show. I liked how it started. You mean this shit? I mean, I like that. I'm a Muslim. I don't supposed to say that, but it was cool. I like that. Alhamdulillah. But
It's
anyway, yeah, I'm all those things, but I'm also an academic. I taught at the University of Central Florida for a number of years, tenured professor there, tenured professor at the University of Illinois, tenured professor at the University of Cincinnati before that. My areas are history, constitutional legal history. I'm the last academic to have interviewed Thurgood Marshall. I think you have heard of him
yes.
on
Of
stage.
course.
And interesting thing, when Clarence Thomas became nominated, I wrote an opinion piece for him and favor him in the Chicago Defender and the Chicago Tribune way
Ah,
back when. Because the whole idea, I believe that when you're a judge, you are away from public opinion, just like Chief Justice Warren. You know, he was able to give that wonderful verdict in 1954 and Brown versus Board of Education. And people said, oh, why did Eisenhower put him in? And it's because he was a finely tuned machine and he was able to make it one of the greatest decisions in the Supreme Court ever. So anyway, I'm an academic, constitutional legal scholar, labor scholar, scholar of social society and humanity. Been on three White House commissions on both ends, Bush as well as Clinton. But most importantly, um, not only that I'm a candidate, but I'm concerned about the very nature and the direction of our country. And I think debates like the one that you are promoting is good. I think now is not the time to get so caught up in ideological perspectives. I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. Most people just want someone to do the right thing.
yeah.
To do the right thing, have clear thought, have clear analysis, and know where to go. So I think that's enough I should say about that. But I'm
Thank
glad to
you.
be.
Well, let's talk about the people who are trying to accomplish that or trying to convince America that they got that. Last time, previously, and you can't make this shit up, debate reactions, we had 8 candidates. Today we have 7. Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson did not qualify this time. Last time he qualified with about 1.5%. Now he's well below 1%, so he didn't make it. Doug Burgum, who previously the North Dakota governor, previously had to pay people to donate his campaign so that he could get his foot in the door last time. He didn't have to do anything like that this time. He made it in pretty comfortably at just shy of 2%. So that was a very, very unexpected large growth. He was definitely a somebody nobody was expecting. Not even us. We didn't even know who
Well,
he
Kellen,
was.
Kellen, you have to realize that the debate that we just had changed the numbers because he did a very good job
Oh, he did a
in that
great job.
debate. So that's why I say I think he gets his 2% naturally that way. Continue. I don't mean
Ladies
that.
and gentlemen, we got another JW associate. It's Angelina.
Hello, hi.
All right.
Hello.
Hey,
So,
Angelina.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for joining us. Wait.
yeah. Dan is going to hop on later as well. We'll just have a lively family that will continuously grow throughout the night. So stay tuned. Um, Continuing on with the last debates, Christie, despite being booed heavily throughout the audience multiple times, actually held his base pretty much the same. So whatever his core audience was, seemed to like him well enough. Tim Scott kind of held steady. Mike Pence dropped. He dropped below Haley before he was number 3. Now he's in a fairly distant fourth place. So he was one of the two biggest losers in that sense. Perhaps the biggest winner in terms of raw growth was Nikki Haley. Even though everybody was talking about Ramaswamy, Haley has grown the strongest, and some polls have her above Ramaswamy and up there with DeSantis. Others have her in third, which is where I believe Fox has her tonight. Ramaswamy had a very promising performance last time. He had a lot of growth and support, and of course, a lot of people started to look into his past. Since then, it has seemed to waver. After the debates, it seemed to be sharp up. It's beginning to waver a little bit, so we'll see if he can put out another memorable performance tonight and bring it back. The other biggest loser alongside Pence has been Florida's own DeSantis. Since last debate and now, his support has dropped off considerably. He was about 20-ish percent, 20 to 22%. Now he's about 12 to 15%. A massive drop. And so Trump's lead, which was before about 51 to 55, is now close to 60. So as much as they were all living in the shadow of him before, it's even bigger now. When it comes to what's going to happen tonight, a lot of it's going to have to revolve around who makes it to debate 3. Because debate 3, I believe they raised the requirements a little bit. So I imagine whoever performs poorly, and actually looking at here now, Fox has Pence below Scott now. So Pence is now the second lowest. What a drop, right? So Pence, DeSantis, Hutchinson, the America's biggest losers according to the polls. Biggest winners being Haley and Ramaswamy, and obviously grand overlord of the GOP, Donald Trump.
Indeed.
Who is in Michigan right now doing a rally. But we're here tonight because there's more people on this stage. It's fun.
We're about 20 seconds out from the debate to start. Dr. White, quick thought, 15 seconds. What is one thing that you expect to see out of this debate?
I think they're going to begin to separate themselves in reference to foreign policy. Right now, that is big. Foreign policy and inflation. Let's see what type of plans, what type of programs that each of them have, and also how their programs may be different or similar to Donald Trump. Because for sure, he is the elephant still in the room.
America's 40th commander-in-chief.
Here we go.
We love Ronald Reagan.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government, I'm here to help.
And sought peace through strength.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
40 years after Reagan's landslide re-election, the Republican Party faces critical questions. What does it mean to be a conservative?
We fight for the truth.
We are not going to worry about what the left and the media say about us.
What is the key to a thriving economy?
It's innovation, not regulation.
America could do for anyone what she's done for me.
We will stop the spending. We will stop the borrowing. We will stop the earmarks.
What is America's role in the world?
We need to build a military fitted to the widening challenges in an ever more dangerous world.
Sometimes you avoid war by showing you tough.
And the country faces even more challenges. Would Reagan even recognize the country in which we now live? Tonight, candidates seeking the Republican nomination converge in California to chart a new path for the grand old party. Now is the time for choosing.
Man, the production quality, so real.
Hey, this is Fox. This is Fox Nation, everybody. So.
Oh boy.
This isn't your grandpa's Fox. This is Fox Nation.
It's like the intro to like the NFL game, you know.
You have to do Reagan. That's the Reagan library. He's buried there, for goodness
inside the
sake.
spectacular Air Force One pavilion,
beautiful.
where the stage is set for a showdown.
You got to. If you have never been there, you have to go. It is a beautiful, beautiful
I am
facility.
thrilled to be sitting alongside my
I've never been there.
co-moderators, Fox News Channel Dana Perino and Ilya Calderon, Univision.
Good evening. Thank you, Stuart. President Reagan famously described America as a shining city on a hill. And tonight, 7 candidates will make the case they should be the one to lead that city into a brighter tomorrow. But first, they have to convince you, the voter. Please allow me to welcome our Spanish-speaking audience. Muy buenas noches a todos. Desde la Biblioteca Presidencial Ronald Reagan, los precandidatos republicanos también buscan su voto para las primarias del partido. Bienvenidos.
And good evening. So let's meet the candidates who have qualified and chosen to be on this stage tonight. They are positioned by the order they rank in the polls, with the highest polling candidate in the middle. Standing center stage, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Hey, that's our governor.
Yeah.
Hey. I think he's from Florida too. It's Nikki Haley, you know her.
It's South Carolina, Senator Tim Scott.
God,
New
he
Jersey
is.
Governor Chris Christie.
On the wing tonight, former Vice President Mike Pence.
How's it looking down there,
And
Mike?
North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum.
We have questions on a wide variety of issues important to primary voters. Candidates get 1 minute to answer and 30 seconds to respond if singled out. When their time runs out, we'll all hear this. We have a lot of ground to cover, so please keep it civilized.
Let's get going.
Hey guys.
Famous
We are
last
in
words.
this spacious, sunny place tonight, designed to reflect the very nature and character of Ronald Reagan. It's a place that makes you proud to be an American. Yet today our nation is drowning in division and incivility.
Voters say they dread the 2024 election and find politics exhausting. 2 in 3 Americans think the country is on the wrong track. And 3 in 4 say the economy is not in good shape.
Prices are up 18% since 2020. More than half of the US population has little access to childcare. 85% of Americans say their personal finances are a source of stress.
Americans want to believe a leader who says, you can follow me. I've got you. Don't worry. President Biden is trying to do that with Bidenomics.
And yesterday, he joined the picket lines where auto workers are demanding more wages and job security. Senator Scott, you recently reacted by praising Ronald Reagan for firing air traffic controllers in the 1980s, saying, you strike, you're fired. Strike? Would you fire thousands of striking auto workers today?
Obviously, cannot fire anybody in the private sector. However, we should look back at the first bill in Congress under Joe Biden. The first bill had $86 billion for the union pensions because they continue to
Somebody else listening to this somewhere.
I think it's on clean.
Your mic. Is that they want 4-day French work weeks.
Oh, never mind.
More money. They want more benefits, working fewer hours. That is simply not going to stand. I said in a finance committee hearing, when a widow came before the committee whose promised pension from the unions, $4,000 a month. Unfortunately, it had been cut to $1,000 a month. We must make sure that we honor the commitment.
Each person mute your mic.
Not overpromise than underdeliver, and leave the taxpayers on the hook. I'll say this: Joe Biden should not be on the picket line. He should be on the southern border working to close our southern border.
Oh, that just fixed it. Who muted the mic?
Unsafe, wide open, and insecure, leading to the deaths of 70,000 Americans in the last 12 months because of fentanyl. It is devastating. Every county in America is now a border county because fentanyl has devastated Americans in every single state. I will also say 6 million illegal crossings since Joe Biden has taken office, and he eliminated Title 42. The one thing he should do is finish the wall, reinstate Title 42, and get the job done.
Well, I can promise you that we are
tone of
going to
voice
have
there.
a lot of questions on the border and immigration. But in the meantime, we do want to talk about the economy and jobs, and especially want to talk about this strike for just a moment more. Mr. Ramaswamy, you've said you really empathize with the strikers. You're standing next to Senator Scott. Do you agree with what he said, or do you think he's wrong?
I agree with some of what he said, for sure. I like the spirit of it. I'll say that I don't have a lot of patience for the union bosses. I think that's where he and I actually have a common view. I do have a lot of sympathy for the workers, however. People are going through real hardship in this country. I've been through hardship growing up. My father stared down layoffs at GE under Jack Welch's tenure at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio. My mom had to work overtime in nursing homes in Southwest Ohio to make ends meet and pay off our home loan. So I understand that hardship is not a choice, but victimhood is a choice. And we choose to be victorious in the United States of America. You know what, if I was giving advice to workers, I would say go picket in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. That's really where the protest needs to be. Disastrous economic policies that have driven up prices, that have driven up interest rates and mortgage rates. At the same time, wages remaining stagnant. What we need is to deliver economic growth in this country. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear energy. Put people back to work by no longer paying them more money to stay at home. Stabilize the U.S. dollar itself and rescind a majority of those unconstitutional federal regulations that are hampering our economy. That is how we unleash American exceptionalism. And that's not a Democratic vision or a Republican vision. That is an American vision that we embrace economic growth, and capitalism is still the best system known to man to lift us up from poverty, and we should not apologize for it. That's what it means to be an American.
Something interesting there was how he promoted nuclear power. No other politicians tend to do that. So that's actually kind of cool.
The CEOs of General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis make 336 times the number of rank and file workers. That's just part of a wider income inequality trend in the country. The richest 1% now controls 1/5 of all income. Vice President Pence, last week you said you side with American workers, but you also support how these companies operate. Which is it?
Well, thank you for the question. I want to thank Univision and Fox Business for assembling such a wonderful forum. Look, I do disagree with something Tim Scott just said. Joe Biden doesn't belong on a picket line. He belongs on the unemployment line. I'm from the second leading manufacturing state in the country. I was governor of the state of Indiana. We brought 12,000 factories back to America during our administration. I know something about manufacturing. And I got to tell you, while the union bosses are talking about class warfare and talking about disparity in wages, I have to tell you, I really believe what's driving that is Bidenomics has failed. Wages are not keeping up with inflation. Auto workers and all American workers are feeling it, and families are struggling in this economy. And Joe Biden's Green New Deal agenda is good for Beijing and bad for Detroit. We ought to repeal the Green New Deal, get rid of the mandates and subsidies that are driving American gasoline, automotive manufacturing into the graveyard. And beyond that, also, as President of the United States, I'll be standing with workers all across America, and I'll be standing for the right to work of every American to join a union or not join a union as they decide.
Senator Scott, you were mentioned. Will you care to respond?
There's no doubt that Joe Biden needs to be fired. That's why I'm running for president. I look forward to being the next president of the United States. I will also say...
That sounded like a David answer.
On restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting the America we all love. Growing up in a single-parent household, I wondered
if
he's
back on this.
would work for a kid in the inner city. I've got good news.
He was bound to do it
Every
eventually.
single child, whether you're in the inner cities of Chicago or the rural parts of Iowa. America and the dream, it is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. God bless these United States.
I think we need to look at exactly what happened. Biden showed up on that picket line, but why are those workers actually there? It's because of all of the spending that he has pushed through in the economy that's raised the inflation. So when you look at the fact that we are paying higher gas prices, higher grocery prices, $7,000 more a year for families, what we need to do is I came out with an economic plan, eliminate the gas and diesel tax so that they have more money in their pocket. Let's focus on going after middle America and cutting taxes for middle America and collapsing those brackets. Let's get rid of unfair distortions like the state and local tax that they give to wealthy people in blue states and paid by red states. And let's make sure we make the small business taxes permanent. They only made those temporary. They made the corporate taxes permanent. Let's focus on what it takes to get more cash in the pockets of workers. That's when we'll be able to deal with strikes like this, not sitting on a picket line like Joe Biden is.
Thank you, Governor Haley. We have other questions to get to about economy. Allow me to.
I just have to, I'm sorry.
Allow me to.
I'm sorry, I have to jump in because we're missing the point and every other network is missing the point.
Oh,
the reason
okay,
why
Doug.
people are striking in Detroit is because Joe Biden's interference with capital markets and with free markets. The subsidies, we're subsidizing the automakers
David's
and
in
we're
agony.
subsidizing the cars and a particular kind of car, not every car. We're subsidizing electric vehicles. And when you decide all of your taxpayer money.
Is it just me, or does he sound exactly like Pence?
And the batteries
Pretty much.
They do sound similar.
minerals, they're called rare.
At first I thought it was Pence. I'm like, wait, what?
I thought that was Pence at first too.
100,000
Me
pounds
also.
of earth in Indonesia, in Africa. They're literally destroying the planet so that they can make a battery that's in a car subsidized.
Conspiracy theory that they're the same person.
They need 2/3 less workers to build an electric car.
Come to think of it, you've never seen them in the same room. Except this one, of course. But
Right, but that's AI.
yeah, of course. Do you have like AirPods, Angelina, or like headphones or something? It would fix the problem.
Vice President Pence warns that politics of, quote, Trump's populist proteges, like Mr. Ramaswamy, are a road to ruin for the GOP. If the government shuts down, should voters blame populist Republicans?
Voters should blame everybody who's in Washington, D.C. They get sent down there to do the job, and they've been failing at doing the job for a very long time. And let's be honest about this with the voters. You know, during the Trump administration, they added $7 trillion. $7 trillion in national debt. And now the Biden administration has put another $5 trillion on and counting. They have failed, and they're in the spot they're in now because none of them are willing to tell the truth. None of them are willing to take on the difficult issues. They just want to keep kicking the can down the road. And the inflation that Nikki spoke about is absolutely right, and it's caused by government spending. And that's why people all across this country are suffering tonight. And yet we don't get any answers because Joe Biden hides in his basement and won't answer as to why he's raising the debt the way he's done.
Not the
Donald
basement.
Trump hides behind the walls of his golf clubs
Sounds
and won't
beautiful.
show up here to answer questions like all
Sounds
the
great.
rest of us are up here to answer. He put $7 trillion on the debt. He should be in this room to answer those questions for the people you talk about who are suffering. And if the government closes, it's the blame. It is to the blame of
Is
everyone
DeSantis on the
in
stage?
Washington,
No.
D.C.
Okay,
Failed to do
just
their
checking.
job and just plays
It's
to the
a projector. He goes there.
Trying to get.
Oh wait, they,
Can we please respect the time?
We can get it done.
Governor DeSantis, you haven't spoken, please.
The people in Washington are shutting down the American dream with their reckless behavior. They borrowed, they printed, they spent, and now you're paying more for everything. They are the reason for that. They have shut down our national sovereignty by allowing our border to be wide open. So please spare me the crocodile tears for these people. They need to change what's going on. And where's Joe Biden? He's completely missing in action from leadership. And you know who else is missing in action? Donald Trump is missing in action. He should be on the stage tonight. He owes
did
it
it.
to you to
You went
defend
there.
his record where they added $7.8 trillion to the debt. That set the stage for the inflation that we have now. I can tell you this, as governor of Florida, we cut taxes, we ran surpluses, we've paid down over 25% of our state debt, and I vetoed wasteful spending when it came to my desk. And as your president, when they send me a bloating spending bill that's going to cause your prices to go up, I'm going to take out this veto pen and I'm going to send it right back to them.
Ilya, you mentioned the question.
okay. If that
Is
continues,
that David Washington enjoying what Ron DeSantis is saying?
Wait, I'm just happy that Ron is actually showing that he's got some
income
Yes.
on childcare, and they're having to decide:
some-
is it worth it for me
some
to work,
strength in him.
or
He's got
does
a
it
new
not make sense for me
strategy.
financially?
It's almost like David Washington is working with him.
Is going
It's
to
almost
end.
like
And
almost like
70,000 daycares.
David's secretly on retainer.
Effort to broaden eligibility
those
for
people
child care
that
assistance.
are
That
in
fell
the-
apart last
so
year.
he has to keep
And the moms and dads out there who are worried, what can you tell them if you weren't able to get it through the Congress? How could you do it as president?
Certainly one of the things I did as a member of Congress was to make sure that we protected the Head Start programs around the country, giving people the opportunity to pick and choose the place that they send their children. The challenges that we see today under the Biden administration is that the cost for daycare has gone over $15,000 per child. In the Build Back Broker plan,
That's why you have to take that pill.
it was going up to $29,000.
Did you say Build Back Burger?
That problem is to make sure that we actually cut taxes and give more Americans their money back. When I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we actually lowered a single mother's taxes by 70% on the federal level. For dual income households,
Single
by
mother,
60%.
single mother, single mother.
Then we went a step further. We doubled the child tax credit and made it refundable. By doing that, more parents had more resources to make the decisions how to take care of their family. The one thing we should do is let the American people keep their money. When that happens, the greatest opportunities rise from the ashes.
Okay, I'm going to give you 15 seconds. Go ahead, and then we're going to the border.
Ilya mischaracterized a part of my view. I think this artificial division is unhelpful in our party. The real divide is not between the Republicans on this stage. And in the Reagan Library, I want to say these are good people on this stage. The real
Beautiful.
divide is between the majority of us in this country who love the United States of America and share our founding ideals. Free speech, meritocracy, the idea you get ahead in this country, not in the color of your skin, but on the content of your character, and the fringe minority in the Democrat Party that has a chokehold over that party. That's the real divide. So this populist versus classical debate is artificial.
Ilya?
We need to unite this party.
It's not with any party. It's just the Democrats.
I want to answer the question on childcare. We have
I think we're going to go on. You have to. We have all these questions. We're going to get to you. We're going to come back to you. There's a lot of time.
Childcare. Nobody answered the question. In North Dakota, we knew that the cliff was
Shut up,
coming.
Doug.
We knew that there was going to be millions of people.
Pence number 2 is just running his mouth.
We passed legislation because
Dude, those eyebrows can kill the Grinch.
We're going to the point.
Child care is workforce infrastructure.
Not making fun of you.
In 1984, President Ronald Reagan said the following.
Idea of amnesty for those who have put down roots and who have lived here, even though sometime back they may have entered illegally.
2 years later, President Reagan granted amnesty to nearly 3 million immigrants, something no Democrat or Republican president has done since. Governor Christie, as governor of a non-border state in 2010, you supported a path to citizenship. But when you ran for president in 2016, you flipped, saying immigrants should be tracked like FedEx packages. Where do you stand now on a path to citizenship for 11 million of undocumented immigrants?
The problem is that since no one has done anything since we first had this discussion 13 years ago, we're not in a position to be able to do any of that anymore. What we have to do now is first treat this like the law enforcement problem it is. Our laws are being broken every day at the southern border, every day. And Joe Biden and his crew is doing nothing about enforcing that law. They are letting it go. And by the way, they announced during the presidential race they were going to let it go. And we need to have a president who acts like I did as governor, enforce the law first and foremost. And that means what I'll do on day one is sign an executive order to send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol to make sure that we stop the flow of fentanyl over the border, but also to make sure that we send a much different message. We want you here in this country to fill the 6 million vacant jobs we have, but only if you come here to follow the law and only if you come here legally. If you come here illegally, we will apprehend you and we will send you back across the border from which you came. And the fact is that until we set a law and order agenda in this country, not only now, but in the future, we won't be able to continue this. And I'll tell you this, Donald Trump failed on this as well. He said he was going to build a wall across the whole border. He built 52 miles of wall and said Mexico would pay for it. Guess what? I think if Mexico knew that he was only going to build 52 miles, they might have paid for the 52 miles.
Thank you, Superintendent. Most illegal immigrants are coming from countries south of the border. You've seen the Fox News drone. It's captured this steady stream of people coming into the country on a daily basis. In fact, I believe we have a live picture of it tonight that is happening right now, live.
It's better than the Fulton County Jail.
Nearly $55 billion to address the root causes of migration. But crime, poverty, and corruption, they persist, and the number of migrants is only growing. Are we wasting our money?
Well, what happens is when Joe Biden waved the green flag, it told everybody to come. And now we've seen 6 million people cross the border. We've had more fentanyl that have killed Americans in the Iraq, Vietnam, or Afghanistan wars combined. We need to make sure that we are a country of laws. The second we stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this country was founded on. So we have to secure the border. The way we do that is, first of all, defund sanctuary cities. You see what's happening in Philadelphia right now. It's got to stop. We need to make sure we put 25,000 more Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. I spent 400 miles down that border, and I'm telling you, Border Patrol agents aren't allowed to do their job. Let's go back to remain in Mexico policy. Instead of catch and release, let's go to catch and deport.
What about the aid that what about the aid that federal taxpayers are paying to deal with the root causes? It's not working.
The only aid that we should be spending right now is to secure the border, the southern border, the northern border, period. We need to keep Americans safe. And right now, Americans are not safe. Only when we fix the immigration system, only when we get the border secure, should we ever look at putting any more money into this. Our money should be about keeping Americans safe. We're not doing that. Joe Biden's not doing that. And you mentioned Congress and shutting down government. I'll make it clear. We have to change the budget process in 4 years. In 40 years. Congress has only delivered a budget on time 4 times in 40 years. If they don't keep the government open, they should not get paid. No pay, no budget. That's the way we should have
DeSantis, we have a question.
That was we're on sentence.
China invested $12 billion in Latin America just last year. They signed strategic partnerships with 7 countries, including Mexico. And China's military ties to the region now include arms sales and training exercises. Are you comfortable with China deepening ties with our southern neighbors?
Of course not. And the reason why we're in this mess is because elites in DC for far too long have chosen surrender over strength when it comes to the CCP. Some people in our country got rich, our industrial base got hollowed out, and they have been able to build the second most powerful military in the entire world. We need a totally new approach to China. We are going to have real hard power in the Indo-Pacific, like Reagan, to deter their ambitions. We're going to have economic independence from China, where we're decoupling our economy, and we are going to go after the cultural power they have in this country. As governor of Florida, I banned the CCP from buying land in our state. We should do that all across these United States. We shouldn't have them in our universities. We shouldn't have Confucius institutes. So
What? Whoa.
This clown decoupled the economy from China will send the world into a depression.
President, I am not going to let that happen. I'm
It's
going to
America's
reverse
duty to push others down. Don't you know, David?
This clown is dangerous. This clown is
Come on,
dangerous.
David.
I'm sorry.
It's governor.
Governor clown.
It's called it.
All undocumented immigrants and their children, even if the children are citizens of the United States. Under what legal premise will you expel U.S. citizens?
So the first thing I want to say is I agree with everything the Republicans on the stage are on the right side
I
of this
agree.
issue.
I love these guys. I'm
Militarize
a big
the
fan.
southern border, stop funding sanctuary cities, and end foreign aid to Mexico and Central America to end the incentives to come across. But I do go a step further. You're right about that, Ilya. I favor ending birthright citizenship for the kids of illegal immigrants in this country. Now, the left will howl about the Constitution and the 14th Amendment. The difference between me and them is I've actually read the 14th Amendment. What it says is that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the laws and jurisdiction thereof are citizens. So nobody believes that the kid of a Mexican diplomat in this country enjoys birthright citizenship. Not a judge or legal scholar in this country will disagree with me on that. Well, if the kid of a Mexican diplomat doesn't enjoy birthright citizenship, then neither does the kid of an illegal migrant who broke the law to come here. And as the father of two sons, it is hard for me to look them in the eye and say, you have to follow the law when our own government fails to follow its own laws. That's how we really go the distance and solve this problem and restore the rule of law in the United States of America, because that is part of what it even means to be an American.
Senator Scott, you oppose ending birthright citizenship. What does Mr. Ramaswamy have wrong on that issue?
Yeah, there's no doubt the fact that when you think of the Constitution and the 14th Amendment, it was certainly written as it relates to slavery, not as it relates to illegal immigration. It's been applied to illegal immigration. So the challenge that we face is, in fact, one that has to do with whether or not the people that come here are under the jurisdiction of our laws. And frankly, if you come here illegally, you are not. Now, surviving a Supreme Court argument is something I can't tell you. But from a perspective of the Constitution, I think it's simple that clearly it was designed for slavery and not for illegal immigration. I'll go one step further, though. When we have a conversation about the things that are happening on this stage, we think about the fact that Vivek just said we were all good people, and I appreciate that, because last debate, he said we were all bought and paid for. And I thought about that for a little while and said, you know, I can't imagine how you could say that knowing that you were just in business with the Chinese Communist Party and the same people that funded Hunter Biden millions of dollars was a partner of yours as well. It's not nonsense.
Oh, Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden.
These are good people who are tainted by a broken system. And it's not the fault of anybody who's in politics. Excuse me. Thank you for speaking while I'm interrupting. While I'm speaking. If I may finish.
I was wondering where my migraine of the day was. Here it is.
We know it didn't exist in China. Everybody knows that.
If I may
focus on holding Joe Biden accountable. That's what we need
This
to be.
is Thanksgiving at my house.
Wait, you're related to Ramaswamy and DeSantis?
You know what I did with my first company?
I mean, I am mixed.
In China. But you know what I
Oh
did that
my
was
God.
different than every other company?
Rahaman and Ramaswamy, same thing.
It's all connected.
that we would never do business in China. And I
You
will
know,
say something.
their mic should be muted until they like hit a Jeopardy buzzer.
Interrupted by a lot of people here, and I want to be respectful because I believe these were respectful last debate. But I do not believe in these. We're sitting here in the Reagan Library.
Yes, I wish you
in
did
the
not think it
honor
was
of
midnight
Ronald
in
Reagan's
America.
library, if I may, from one admirer of Ronald Reagan to another. From one admirer of Reagan to another.
This isn't productive.
I want to hear about that.
Let's have a policy debate.
What's going on?
Let us have a policy debate.
Let's have about their record.
Policy debate.
Wow. It's giving The View.
Man, you know what? Come to think, the 2020 general debates were pretty great. Now that I think about it.
Which put the legal status of 600,000 dreamers in the hands of the courts. Dreamers work and they pay taxes. As president, if the Supreme Court ends DACA, would you work with Congress to reach a permanent solution for dreamers?
Well, first, let me say I'm glad Vivek pulled out of his business deal in 2018 in China. That must have been about the time you decided to start voting in presidential elections. So, let me speak to this issue.
They really hate this kid.
I negotiated to remain in Mexico
Because he's their threat.
with the Mexican government. We used economic power.
If it's
to
new,
bring
it's
the Mexican
bad.
government
You
to
don't
the
get
table.
it. The old days
We
were
built hundreds
better.
of miles of border wall, and despite what's said here today, we reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. And as president of the United States, I can do it again.
I'm sure that's true.
And the truth is, we need to fix a broken immigration system, and I'll do that as well. But first and foremost, a nation without borders is not a nation. And we have to secure the southern border of the United States.
It can be a nation
of
without
America.
borders,
I
not
know
a state.
how to do it, and we will do it again. Let me say one other thing about China. Let me say one other thing about China.
Would you negotiate with Congress to give a solution to the problem that dreamers have right now? They are on a limbo.
Well, let me tell you, I served in Congress for 12 years, although it seemed longer. But you know, something I've done different than everybody on this stage is I've actually secured reform in Congress. You know, Ron, you
Answer
talked
the
really
question,
good about
Pence.
cutting
You
spending.
guys are really getting on my last nerve now.
You know, some people love the American cheeseburger. I love the American nothing burger.
Right after Hurricane Katrina, you remember, we stood our ground. I led House conservatives. We cut $100 billion out of the federal budget. It can
Dreamers.
be done, but as I said in the last debate, I'll say again, this is no time for on-the-job training. I'm going to be ready on day one to get Congress to step
You had
up,
your chance,
secure the
Pence.
southern border of the United States.
Remember
build
when
a
you were the leader of the
military
Senate, Mike?
fitted to our times, and we're going to get spending in Washington, D.C. under control once and for all.
On the other side of this break, and I propose to go to a break. How will these candidates make America safer as rising crime plagues our cities? Debate night continues in moments.
Wow.
This is so frustrating. You've got these. Most of them are career politicians who know
back.
this
It
stuff.
was on a
They
slow
won't
boil.
answer the questions. They won't put themselves in the box, knowing darn well that a lot of these issues are just very hard to tackle. And you've got a Congress of nearly 500 people to deal with. They just need to be honest with Americans and say, hey, you know, this is tough, but we could do it. We need the help of both Republicans and Democrats to get some real solutions. This is so frustrating for them to gang up on Vivek. He's not essential right now. That's
the strategy there is simply he rocketed to success, and if they can get people to notice his business dealings and they can put some of the focus on his inexperience, they really want to tackle this age issue because he's so young and he's so energized. I think that's why. I think did nothing for Tim Scott. As a matter of fact, that's the first time I've ever seen the senator kind of lose his cool. That's the proper way to say it. But the disrespect of talking over somebody, and then you have the governor didn't do himself any justice either, because he's trying to say everybody's, out of line, but he's just as bad talking over people.
That was a mess, and I am serious when I say that their mics should be muted, and they should have like a Jeopardy buzzer or something like that.
Well, I think they
shock them.
I kind of think they are muted a bit because they had to turn up the governor's when he finally spoke for the first time. It didn't seem like they adjusted it, they had to adjust his volume. But you're right; they shouldn't have any way to speak.
Yeah,
Dr. White?
Dr. White, I'd love to hear your opinion.
Uh-oh, he's mute. Hang on, Dr. White, you're muted.
On the bottom of your browser. It's
the bottom?
Yeah, oh yeah, there it is. Yay! Oh wait, no, you hit it too many times.
Yeah, we lost you.
We lost you.
How about now?
Yes, we can hear you.
It's glorious. It's the masterpiece.
I think the problem that you have is that we have showbiz politicians, and it's all based on slogans and nice terms. The issue is that none of them have a clue about foreign policy. They don't have a clue about economics. They are just going back to just bullet points because it sounds cute, but with no substance.
Yeah.
And with that, all of them would drive America into a greater pit of economic ruin. You cannot talk about economics right now without talking about issues with BRICS in the global south. You just can't do it. There are too many things on the outside that has a direct effect on what's taking place within our domestic sphere. Then talking about things like taxation, again, they don't have a clue because, as you stated, they're career politicians. They're unread. They don't know how to do any real research. It's just talking. And right now, I'm not impressed with any one of them.
Me neither.
I agree.
And it has they have such a high school economics thing going on. More spending equals more inflation, but it's not even over everything.
In our country,
They're not
Fox
acknowledging
News
that.
and others have been covering it. Governor Christie, crime in major cities is striking fear into the hearts of Americans. Just last night, looters took over the streets of Philadelphia. You said in the last debate that you would use U.S. attorneys to prosecute crimes local prosecutors won't, but they are stretched as well, and they could not handle all of the lawlessness, the shoplifting, all the carjackings, the armed robberies. They're all surging. Progressive prosecutors were elected by their constituents, and they can't be fired by a president. So what would you do to end the revolving door of criminality?
Well, look, Dana, I'm the only one on this stage who's done it. For 7 years, I ran the 5th largest office in this country at the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey, and we set records for the number of prosecutions that we brought that still have not been broken. And the reason was that we went after the crime that was affecting people's lives. And as president, I will appoint an attorney general and instruct that attorney general that you are to put all the resources that are necessary to bring our cities back under control. The fact is, they will be stretched. There's no doubt about that, but that's what they take the job for, because they love the idea of enforcing the law. We've got to bring law and order back to this country, and not just in our cities. But we need law and order back everywhere. We need law and order back in our suburbs. People are threatened there. We need it in our rural areas. People feel threatened there. And we need it in Washington, D.C. also. And Donald Trump should be here to answer for that, but he's not. And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight. Not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
All right.
That's funny. He is a duck.
As president, you would not have the ability to do that. How do you think about dealing with the root causes of crime, especially this revolving door of the criminals that just get out and come back and commit another crime?
Well, the crime in these cities is one of the strongest signs of the decaying of America. We can't be successful as a country if people aren't even safe to live in places like Los Angeles and San Francisco. Just being in Southern California over the last couple of days, my wife and I have met 3 people who have been mugged on the street, and that would have never happened 10 or 20 years ago. In Florida,
What?
we back the blue. We support the men and women of law enforcement. They are
But not the
keeping us
Democrats.
safe. We have a
Different blue.
50-year low in the crime rate. And yes, when
Wrong
I had
blue.
2 progressive prosecutors that weren't
I see that
following
on
the law in
Ron
Florida,
DeSantis is a
I
liberal.
removed them from their posts, and the people of Florida are safer as a result of it. As president, I will use the Justice Department to bring civil rights cases against all of those left-wing Soros-funded prosecutors. We're not going to let them get away with it anymore. We want to reverse this country's decline. We need to choose law and order over rioting and disorder.
On a related subject, Governor Haley.
Man, George Soros literally is the only liberal out there, isn't
Retirements
he?
are up, recruitment is in the tank, morale is at a record low. 3 years ago, you signed a pledge to support law enforcement. Now, pledges are a nice idea, but what's your actual plan to get more police on our streets?
Well, and I actually did it in South Carolina, too. You know, what we knew in South Carolina was you take care of those who take care of you. We have to start taking care of law enforcement, but it's not just taking care of them with words. It's making sure that you also follow through on what they do. Right now, we have a lot of stolen guns on the street. Well, these law enforcement officers, they arrest these people, and then they go and they're let out the very next day. So law enforcement feels like no one has their back. We have to start prosecuting according to the law. We have to make sure we have the backs of law enforcement, and we have to make sure that we're a country of law and order. But I want to go back to China because I don't think we spent enough time on that. Right now, we have to look at what government's doing to hurt us against China, too. You have a company, U.S. Antibiotics, that produces amoxicillin, the #1 antibiotic that we need. And right now, there is a company in Bristol, Tennessee, that produces that. Yet our federal government only gets it from China. We need to be focusing on companies that produce in America and supporting those companies that produce in America, not companies that are helping China.
Governor, we will be talking foreign policy later. Ilya?
Yes, thank you, Stuart. We're going to stay in the topic of crime because it affects all of us. Governor Burgum, for the first time ever, a Univision poll found that mass shootings and gun safety are one of the most important issues for Latino voters. Mental health concerns are not unique to the United States, but gun violence is. What is your specific plan?
That grin is going to keep me up at night.
Well, first we need to know is
He's not
understand
that
is I think
scary.
that the liberal left seems to be just completely bent on prosecuting law-abiding citizens that are gun owners, because every solution they have to this is take away the Second Amendment rights of Americans, and somehow that's going to solve the problem. But all these cities that we're talking about that he showed the videos of tonight, they have some of the strictest gun laws in the country. So we know that that's not what's working. But what we have to do is get back to the core issues about the family. We have to get back to behavioral health and mental health. We've got to get back to actually enforcing the laws these people talked about. And like we've done in North Dakota, where we've got the goal and we're on the track to being the most military-friendly state in the nation. We've got the most military and the most support of what we're doing in terms of law enforcement, because the morale is down because we've been defunding the police, because they've been attacked in the press. The police have become the bad guys when they're the one. There's all these jobs available in America. Why would you be a policeman if people don't even respect them? Every time I see a policeman, the first thing I say is thank you. And so does everybody else in my family and most of the people in our state, because they know we have to respect the people that are out there defending us every single day.
Can I answer the question on mass shootings?
Mr. Ramaswamy, according to Customs and Border Protection, about 90% of fentanyl is seized at official border crossings, and 57% of the smugglers are U.S. citizens. How would you stop fentanyl brought into the country, mostly by U.S. citizens, through ports of entry?
There's two sides to this, and we have to be very honest about it. One is we do have to seal that southern border. Building the wall is not enough. They're building cartel-financed tunnels underneath that wall. Semi-trucks can drive through them. We have to use our own military to seal the Swiss cheese of a southern border. But we also have to be honest. There's a demand-side problem in this country, too, a mental health epidemic.
Yes.
I met a family in Iowa, 2 parents, Kathy and Derek. They lost their son, Sebastian, 17 years old. He bought Percocet on Snapchat. and then he died. Why did he die? Because it was laced with fentanyl. That is closer to bioterrorism, not a drug overdose. That is poisoning. So it is our job to make sure that never happens. But it's also our job to make sure that 17-year-olds don't turn to Percocet via Snapchat. We have to bring back mental health care in this country, not with pumping pharmaceuticals, but with faith-based approaches that restore purpose and meaning in the next generation of Americans. Many of them are getting it through social media. And this isn't a Republican point or a Democrat point, but if you're 16 years old or under, you should not be using an addictive social media product, period. This is something that we can both agree on, and we can revive both the mental health of this country while stopping the fentanyl epidemic that will kill more people this year than who died on 9/11. And I refuse to be a passive bystander sitting in the White House like the hollowed out husk of a current president we have. We will step up and address this problem and stand for Americans and our children.
Quit encouraging TikTok. Quit encouraging TikTok.
That is why, as Commander-in-Chief, I'm going to use the U.S. military to go after the Mexican drug cartels. They are killing our people. And the stories that I see in Florida, we had an infant, 18 months. Parents rented an Airbnb. And apparently the people that had rented it before were using drugs. The infant was crawling, the toddler was crawling on the carpet and ingested fentanyl residue and died. Are we just going to sit here and let this happen, this carnage happen in our country? I am not going to do that. So I guarantee you on day one, this border is going to be a day one issue for me as president. We're going to declare it a national emergency. Yes, we'll build the wall. We'll do remain in Mexico.
You said bye during the crack epidemic during the 80s and the 90s, Ron.
Come on. The war on drugs has never gone wrong. It's never let us down before, David, right?
Vice President Pence. Just last month, Vice President Pence, you said if elected, you would repeal all Obamacare mandates. However, you also made that same promise in 2016. And at that time, Trump-Pence had congressional majorities for at least the first 2 years. And you did not deliver on that promise. So Obamacare, right now, it is more popular than ever. Why should Americans trust you, if you become president, to fix that? Or is Obamacare here to stay?
Well, first, let me speak to the mass shootings issue, and then I'll answer that question. It's an important one, Dana.
I don't like answering questions.
Look, I'm someone that believes that justice delayed is justice denied. And as a father of three, as a grandfather of three beautiful little girls, I am sick and tired of these mass shootings happening in the United States of America. And if I'm president of the United States, I'm going to go to the Congress of the United States, and we're going to pass a federal expedited death penalty for anyone involved in a mass shooting so that they will meet their fate in months, not years. It is unconscionable that the Parkland shooter, Ron, is actually going to spend the rest of his life behind bars in Florida. That's not justice. We have to mete out justice and send a message to these would-be killers that you are not going to live out your days behind bars. You're going to meet justice in this city.
But does that mean Obamacare is here to stay?
Now we're talking.
Answer it. Look, I think it's one of the choices here. You know, my former running mate, Donald Trump, actually has a plan to start to consolidate more power in Washington, D.C., consolidate more power in the executive branch. If I'm president of the United States, it's my intention to make
Project
the federal
2025. Look it up,
smaller
folks.
by returning to the states those resources and programs that are rightfully theirs under the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. That means all Obamacare funding, all housing funding.
Okay, he got around to it. Thank
HHS
God.
funding. All of it goes back to the states. We'll shut down the federal Department of Education. We'll allow states to innovate. We're going to revive federalism in America, and states are going to help bring America back.
Obamacare staying, but Stu, go ahead.
May I remind everyone to keep within that time frame so that we can get as many questions in as possible. This question for Governor DeSantis. Over 26 million Americans don't have insurance coverage. Governor DeSantis, 2.5 million of them are in your state. That's worse than the national average. Can Americans trust you on this?
Well, I think this is a symptom of our overall economic decline. Everything has gotten more expensive. You see insurance rates are going through the roof. people that are going to get groceries. I spoke with a woman in Iowa, and she said, for the first time in my life, I'm having to take
I
things
love
out of my
folks.
grocery
They're
cart
great.
when I get to the checkout line because the total goes up so quickly. So this is very real, and people are hurting out there. So we've got to address the underlying problem with Bidenomics, the overspending, taking all Biden's rules and regulations. I'm going to throw them in the trash can on day one. You're not going to have to worry about that. We're going to open up all of our energy. We will be energy dominant in this country. That will lower your gas prices. And what we need to do with healthcare is recognize our healthcare is putting patients at the back of the bus. We have big pharma, big insurance, and big government, and we need to tackle that and have more power for the people and the doctor-patient relationship.
So why is your record in Florida on insurance worse than the national average?
Our state's a dynamic state.
I'm
We've got
deflecting.
a lot of folks that come. Of course, we've had a population boom. We also don't have a lot of welfare benefits in Florida. We're basically saying this is a field
So
of dreams. You
saying
can
they
do well in the
work.
state, but we're not going to be like California and have massive numbers of people on government programs without work requirements. We believe you work and you got to do that. And so that goes for all the welfare benefits. And you know what that's done, Stuart? Our unemployment
Answer
rate
the
is the lowest amongst
question.
any big state. We have the highest
You
GDP
did
growth
answer
of
the
any big
question.
state, and even
You answered the
CNBC,
question, but
no
you didn't
fan of
answer the
mine, ranked
overall
Florida the
fact
number
that
one
there's
economy
only
in
one
America.
insurance it's homeowners insurance that's the worst nationwide, and that's because we get hit by hurricanes.
Healthcare is the leading cause of bankruptcy for American families, accounting for 2/3 of all personal bankruptcies. As president, how you protect Americans who get sick from financial ruin?
First of all, how can we be the best country in the world and have the most expensive health care in the world? We have an issue. My mom was in the hospital, and when she was in the hospital, they tried to bring her a couple of Tylenol, and she said, I don't need it. And they said, honey, go ahead and take it because you're paying for it anyway. Why is it that when we got the bill, the insurance company and the hospital negotiated the bill for her without her having anything to do with it? When I am president, we will break all of it, from the insurance company to the hospitals, to the doctor's offices, to the PBMs, to the pharmaceutical companies. We will make it all transparent, because when you do that, you will realize that's what the problem is. Second thing is you've got to deal with tort law. The doctors don't give you the 10 tests because they want to. It's because of the 90% chance they'll get sued. And then we need to bring competition back to healthcare, get rid of certificate of need systems, and make sure that they can compete. We have to put the patient in the driver's seat. They've been in the back seat for way too long. And once we give the patient the ability to decide their health care, deciding which plan they want, that is when we will see magic happen. But we're going to have to make every part of the industry open up and show us where their warts are, because they all have them, and we need to fix this on behalf of the American people.
Guys, the solution is obvious. The people say they want a different price and they'll get it.
About the real problem ever. We talk about why do we have the most expensive healthcare in the world? It's because the federal government got involved the same way they did with EVs, and they said, we're going to subsidize a particular kind of software back in 2008 under Obama, and they said, hey, we're going to do this. It's going to make everyone more productive.
Wait a minute.
All of you that are watching have been to a doctor's office when the doctor's got his back to you and their hands on a keyboard. The only industry in the world that's ever absorbed $1 trillion of IT and became less productive, they saw less patients per day, is U.S. healthcare, because they were subsidizing a certain kind of technology. It wasn't about improving healthcare. It was about picking winners and losers. Every time the federal government's involved, whether it's higher education, healthcare, or now the auto industry, things get more expensive and less competitive.
That was a great transition, because we are going to move on the future of education in America.
Thanks,
What's the
Doug.
government's role in finding a way forward? The second Republican debate rolls on from Simi Valley.
Okay, there's a lot. One thing I would like to note about Ramaswamy is how age. We need to raise the voting age. You need to be older if you want to use social media. You need to be older for this, this, and this. He brings up age a lot, telling people that they need to be older before they can start doing things. Take that as you will. I'm not sure I fully subscribe. But it was a brilliant soup of non-answers. Brilliant soup of non-answers.
You're missing the point that
what am I missing?
They are answering the question. They're just not giving you the details, and that's never going to happen at
You're right.
this level. This is not the show where they're going to say, X, Y, and Z. I think that if you look at the answers, Nikki Haley is knocking it out of the park again because she talks directly to the people and their needs. So when David does his countertop politics, I think she's actually watching because I think she gets it. She's truly answering the fact that there's too many secrets in the medical field.
Well,
Doctors can't deal with this. So
yeah,
and to go back to where Dr. White was talking earlier, I think the only one I could say on that stage that has the foreign policy and the economic abilities is Nikki Haley, and the things that she's done, and she's proving it here by being level-headed, a little bit out there, but
yeah.
I mean, what?
Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues that they have in the last discussion about medicine and healthcare, no one took on the issue that the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturing Group of America paid last year almost $30 million to lobbyists to pay off politicians. The point is that the reason why healthcare is going up is because they paid to vote a certain way. That's the reality of it. And therefore, Americans are the ones who are hurting. They keep trying to blame it on either Trump or Obama, but this has been an ongoing issue for over 30 years.
Agree.
Well,
so therefore, they have to get a little bit better and little bit more straight with the American people. Going to DeSantis, he sounds like, sadly, he's my own governor, like an idiot, though.
Yes.
He's talking about wanting to invade Mexico. Or
Such stupidity.
Start a war.
Check this out. He forgot that the mob is also bringing in drugs from Canada. So you're gonna invade Canada too?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is an idiot. He knows nothing about foreign policy. And to make things even worse, you have a couple of them talking about, well, we have to become tough on crime. Yeah, that's true. But what are you going to do? You're going to bring back a police state? I mean, again, they're just making sloganist statements with no meaning behind anything, no substance. And I think the American people are pissed off with that.
Yeah. And they're talking about crime. The solution, this was something Chris was talking about, was prosecute more, prosecute more, prosecute more. Yeah. Our court system is dysfunctional as is. We are not expanding the court, especially not in what was it district? Was it 11 or 13? Whichever one's, I think it's 11, the South one.
Yeah.
There are so many cases. The cases are increasing every single year, but neither side is willing to come out and say, we're going to create new courts to relieve the docket so that we actually can. Right now, it's, they're like, well, you should love enforcing law, but that's not entirely true. Do you love doing it 32 hours a day? No, you don't. You don't love anything from 32 hours a day, like all day, every day. Like, they want to expand the role of the judiciary, but not expand the judiciary itself. And the judiciary is already overworked.
Agreed.
Anjali, you've been quiet. Say something, please.
I just got back because I had to go to the restroom. But I know. But based off of what I was seeing from what I did catch, it just seemed like we were trying to be relatable, but at the same time not. Like whenever Ron DeSantis was talking about that he spoke to some woman in Idaho or something like that. I'm like, sir.
Look, I spoke to a woman and she said this.
And she said that the prices are going up. I'm like, you could figure that out for yourself.
Maybe he needs to go to the grocery store in Tallahassee.
Exactly.
Even the current expansion won't be fully implemented until 2027. Parents can't wait 4 years for a fix. So what would you do right now?
Well, and school choice isn't the only answer, but I'll tell you it's not out of a lack of trying that we didn't try and get school choice in South Carolina. What I'll tell you, first of all, is we have to acknowledge the fact that 67% of our 8th graders are not proficient in reading or math. Over 80% of our 8th graders aren't proficient in history or civics. And recently they came out and said our 12 and 13-year-olds are scoring at the lowest levels they've been scoring in reading and math in decades. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure we catch our kids back up. We have to make sure they can read. A child that can't read by 3rd grade is 4 times less likely to graduate high school. We need to do reading remediation. We need complete transparency in the classroom. No parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. We need to make sure that we have school choice so that there's competition. We need to move all the programs from the federal government down to the states and let states decide what education looks like in their states. Right. And we need to start building things in America again. Let's put vocational classes back in our high schools, and let's get our kids building the things that we know that we can make. When we start to focus on that and really bring in that parental involvement, that's when we'll start to see a difference. But we've got to get parents back included. We've got to quit spending time on this DEI and CRT and instead focus on financial literacy, on digital literacy, and on making sure that our kids know what they need to do to have the jobs of the next generation.
On the subject of education,
That was a rare, specific answer.
For Governor Christie, students in your state are getting
telling you,
high
my girl,
marks on their
Nikki.
report cards, but minorities
Yeah,
are
what
not
about your
doing
Uncle
well with
Ron?
math and reading. Black and Hispanic
Uncle
students
Ron-
averaging
Uncle Ron is
29
disappointing
points
me.
lower than white students in New Jersey. Would you
Thanksgiving.
address minorities first?
You have to address all students. And look, in our state, Stuart, frankly, before I was governor, that gap was close to 50%. And what we did was institute more charter schools and more Renaissance schools and more public school choice in New Jersey with innovative solutions in cities like Camden, where now we took what was the worst school district in America during my time, and we have now increased that by nearly 40% in terms of their proficiency. It can be done when you give people choice. But let's tell the truth to everybody about what this is. This public school system is no longer run by the public. It is run by the teachers' unions in this country. Randy Weingarten and her crew are absolutely strangling. They are taking the worst of their members and defending them rather than advocating for our kids. And when you have the President of the United States sleeping with a member of the teachers union, there is no chance that you could take the stranglehold away
bold
from the
accusation,
teachers
sir.
union every day. They have an
I don't think
advocate
you can.
inside the White House every day for the worst of
too
their
old.
teachers, not for our students to be the best they can be. A President of the United
Is he talking about Jill?
Union. I did
Yes,
it in New
he's talking
Jersey.
about
I will do it as President of the United States.
Governor DeSantis, I have a question for you. Governor DeSantis, I have a question for you. Florida's new Black History curriculum says, quote, slaves develop skills which in some instances
Oh, here we
apply for
go.
their
Hell
personal
yeah.
benefit. You have said
Beat their ass.
slaves develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of it. But many are still hurt. For descendants of slaves, this is personal. What is your message to them?
So first of all, that's a hoax that was perpetrated by Kamala Harris. We are not going to be doing that. Second of all, that was written by descendants of slaves. These are great Black history scholars, so we need to stop playing these games. Here's the deal. Our country's education system is in decline because it's focused on indoctrination, denying parents' rights. Florida represents the revival of American education. We're ranked #1 in the nation in education by U.S. News and World Report. My wife and I, we have a 6, 5, and 3-year-old. This is personal to us. We didn't just talk about universal school choice. We enacted universal school choice. We didn't just talk about Parents' Bill of Rights. We enacted the Parents' Bill of Rights. We eliminated critical race theory, and we now have American civics and the Constitution in our schools in a really big way, just like President Reagan asked for in his farewell address back in 1989. Florida is showing how it's done. We're standing with parents, and our kids are benefiting.
I learned more about civics when I took it pre-DeSantis. Now nobody's willing to talk about it.
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala should have just taken the one sentence out. America has suffered because of slavery, but we've overcome that. We are the greatest nation on earth because we faced our demons in the mirror and made a decision. So often we think that all the issues, you talked about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail. And you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together as one American family. Our nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are. We are the greatest country on God's green earth. And frankly, the city on the hill needs a brand new leader, and I'm asking for your vote.
I'm going to have a question for you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Over 10.7 million students in over 18,000 public schools nationwide have the ability to change their identity without parental notification. Governor Christie told Stewart last week that he would pass a federal law to protect parental rights. Would you try to do the same?
I have to be very clear about this. Yes. Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder. We have to acknowledge the truth of that for what it is. I met two young women early in this campaign.
Specifically on parental rights in schools.
Parents have the right to know. And you know what the hypocrisy of this is? Even New Hampshire failed to actually get past a piece of legislation here. The very people who say that this increases the risk of suicide are also the ones saying that parents don't have the right to know about that increased risk of suicide. And I'm sorry, it is not compassionate to affirm a kid's confusion. That is not compassion, that is cruelty. I met two young women, Chloe and Katie, early in this campaign, who are in their 20s, now regret getting double mastectomies and a hysterectomy. One of them will never have children. And the fact that we allowed that to happen in this country is barbaric. So I will ban genital mutilation or chemical castration under the age of 18, and parents have absolutely the right.
Would you try to pass a federal law that says parents should have that right?
We are going to require states absolutely have to follow that through.
Governor Burgum just to follow up on this because you in your state you do not have a law that says parents can't be notified, but you want to be president. Would you try to pass a federal law to say parents have that right?
I think this is a state's issue, but I do want to say something, because all night long we've been talking about issues about how it's broken in Washington, and I respect all of the people on the stage here for their 100+ years of public service. Thank you. But the reason why we're not talking about education or healthcare or safety being a problem in North Dakota is because we have a business leader. I've got more experience as a business leader than I think this whole group combined. I know I've created more jobs than everybody else on stage, thousands of high-paying jobs that have real meaning. So as a business leader, you come in and you treat the taxpayer like a customer. So in North Dakota, instead of fighting with the teachers' unions, we actually created a K-12 coordinating council. Everybody gets in the room and the customer is the student.
But you do understand that this is an issue that many people in America really are concerned about, worried about parents and notification in schools.
Yes, and that's why we have 50 platforms of innovation. That's why we have states. There are certain things the federal government is supposed to do. It's not the Department of Education. That needs to be assembled. We got to move it back to states. Do what we did in North Dakota. Instead of like, oh, here's a choice school and here's an old school, the old way with the teachers union, the kids are trapped. We made every school in North Dakota an innovation school. Every school got out from under the red tape, and the things that help teach the values that we're trying to get, like 4-H, like FFA, like Boy Scouts, they can get credit for all of that stuff in North Dakota. And by the way, North Dakota is now at the top of the median SAT scores in the country right now.
Vice President Pence, the Department of Homeland Security warns that violence against LGBTQ plus people is on the rise and intensifying. According to a recent study, members of that community are 9 times more likely to be victims of violent hate crimes. As president, how would you protect this community from violent attacks and discrimination?
Well, as President of the United States,
Stop him from being gay.
I'll stand up for the safety and the civil liberties of every American from every background. And I want the American people to know that. But I want to answer the question as well, Dana, that you just asked of Burke. Because by way of full disclosure, Chris, mentioned the president's situation. My wife isn't a member of the teachers union, but I got to admit, I've been sleeping with a teacher for 38 years. And, full disclosure.
Let him know, Pence. Let him know.
The state of Indiana had one of the very first school choice programs in the country.
He got us in the first half, not going to lie.
And as to your question, Dana, let's be very, very clear. When the Linn-Mar Community Schools in Iowa had a policy where you had to have a permission slip from your parents to get a Tylenol, but you could get a gender transition plan without notifying your parents, I weighed in with a foundation. That's not bad policy. That's crazy. We're going to stand up for the rights of parents, and we're going to pass a federal ban on transgender chemical or surgical surgery anywhere in the country. We've got to protect our kids from this radical gender ideology agenda, and we've got to empower parents at the state level with the ability to choose where their kids go to school, whether it's public, private, parochial, or homeschool. You empower parents, and our schools will straighten up and reflect our values and focus on the basics faster than you could possibly imagine.
You can forget the bell once it's...
Can I just say one thing?
Look, I didn't hear no bell.
China is investing, if you talk over everybody, we lose time. China is investing heavily in their tech companies. $280 billion every year on semiconductor research and development. That is one CHIPS Act per year. Governor DeSantis, you say companies like Google and Meta have too much power. Doesn't going after them give China an edge?
No, I think you look at how our societies develop, they have huge amount of power over our society. They've cracked down on free speech. We're not saying you don't want them to do business, but you want it to be a free market. And right now they're monopolies. But this issue of China, I think, is really going to be fundamental. We have subcontracted out so much of our national needs to the CCP. We rely on them for a whole host of issues. We need to reshore and we need to decouple all those important industries. We need to get that back in the United States. They are our top geopolitical adversary by a country mile. Xi Jinping's got huge ambitions, not only in the Asia Pacific, but as you mentioned earlier, in our region. But ultimately, we've got to beat him on the economy. And so that's what we'll do as president of the United States.
Governor Christie, I wanted to follow up on this because 22% of American workers fear their jobs will be lost to a robot. And you said in the past that the free market is the way to go. Would you retrain workers who lose a job to artificial intelligence, and to do what?
Well, look, what I think artificial intelligence offers us is an extraordinary opportunity to expand well beyond the productivity that we have now, and to have Americans be able to be involved in that revolution, Dana. You know, each time we have shown incredible innovation and progress.
He's written by ChatGPT.
We've done
like
all kinds of new
just like
opportunities for folks. Yes, we have to do retraining for folks who lose some of their jobs, and we should be doing that. And we should have more training available both at the county college level and the local level for people to be able to access it. So yes, I would be in favor of that. But this is a much bigger issue than that. We can't be afraid of innovation. America has been the great innovator of this world over the last 250 years. A technological innovator, a manufacturing innovator, a governmental innovator. And that's why America has to continue to stand strong in the world, pro-innovation, pro-progress. And I will tell you this, as President of the United States, what I will do is to make sure that every innovator in this country gets the government the hell off its back and out of its pocket so that it can innovate and bring great new inventions to our country that will make everybody.
We're going to get a tax break. We're innovators. You're political innovators.
TikTok is banned on government-issued devices because of its ties to the Chinese government. Yet you joined TikTok after dinner with boxer and influencer Jake Paul. Should the commander-in-chief be so easily persuaded by an influencer?
So the answer is I have a radical idea for the Republican Party. We need to win elections. And part of how we win elections is reaching the next generation of young Americans where they are. So when I get into office, I've been very clear. kids under the age of 16 should not be using addictive social media. We're only going to ever get to declaring independence from China, which I favor, if we actually win. So while the Democrats are running rampant, reaching the next generation 3-1, there's exactly one person in the Republican Party which talks a big game about reaching young people, and that's me. And let me level with all of you. I'm the new guy here.
Talks a big game.
And so I know I have to earn your trust. Right. What do you see? You see a young man who's in a bit of a hurry, maybe a little ambitious, bit of a know-it-all, it seems at times. I'm here to tell you, no, I don't know it all. I will listen. I will have the best people, the best and brightest in this country, whatever age they are, advising me. We will be probably many of the people on this stage included. That's how I built my companies. I want to be challenged. I want people to disagree with me.
Sounds like
That's
Trump.
what makes America great.
It's Trump.
Pursuit of perfection. That is what makes America great. And that is why we will end it once we win this election.
I have to jump. I have to jump in here. I'm sorry. I have.
Was speaking.
There's one person on this.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we can have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say because I can't believe you've got a TikTok situation. What they're doing is these 150 million people are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails, they can get text messages, they can get all of these things.
This is
China
very important for our party.
Exactly what they're doing.
This is very important for our party, and I'm going to say
you've gone and you've helped China make medicines in China, not America. You're now wanting kids to go and get on the social media that's dangerous for all of us. You went and you were in business with the Chinese that gave Hunter Biden $5 million. We can't trust you. We can't trust you. We can't have TikTok in our kids' lives.
This is very important. Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 15 seconds.
I think, excuse me.
You have 15 seconds, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Thank you. I think we would be better served as a Republican Party if we're not sitting here hurling personal insults and actually have a legitimate debate about policy following Reagan's 11th Commandment in his honor. And the answer is that is what actually makes our country strong. And I believe in these people. These are good people on the stage. They disagree, but let's have a legitimate disagreement. That's what I would say.
Stuart, can we get back to the question?
No, we cannot. Governor DeSantis, I'm going straight.
On this stage,
sir, we will have to cut your mic, and I don't want to do that. I don't. So, Governor DeSantis, let me go to you. Experts say President Putin has ordered assassinations across Europe, cheated on arms control treaties with the U.S., and seeks to work with China to force our decline. President Reagan believed that if you want to prevent a war, you better be prepared to fight one. Today, the Republican Party is at odds over aid to Ukraine.
Like his jaw.
The price tag so far is $76 billion. But is it in our best interest to degrade Russia's military for less than 5% of what we pay annually on defense, especially when there are no U.S. soldiers in the fight?
It's in our interest to end this war, and that's what I will do as president. We are not going to have a blank check. We will not have U.S. troops, and we're going to make the Europeans do what they need to do. But they've sent money to make Democrats' pensions and salaries and funding small businesses halfway around the world. Meanwhile, our own country is being invaded. We don't even have control of our own territory. We have got to defend the American people before we even worry about all these other things. And I watch these guys in Washington, D.C., and they don't care about the American people. They don't care about the fentanyl deaths. They don't care about the communities being overrun because of this border. They don't care about the Mexican drug cartels. So as Commander-in-Chief, I will defend this country's sovereignty.
But it's not a territorial dispute. It's never been a territorial dispute.
And 90% of the resources that we send over to Ukraine is guaranteed as a loan. It is not 90% of the money that we send over there is loan. Well, we can talk about this, but at the end of the day, 90% of the money that we send over there is actually in the form of a loan. It's not actually not be paid by Ukraine, it's paid by the NATO.
How many percent of it's a loan? I don't know.
I think it's a really good topic too, but I will say let's debate the fact that our national vital interest is in degrading the Russian military. By degrading the Russian military, we actually keep our homeland safer, we keep our troops at home, and we all understand Article 5 of NATO.
We have
when
to
in fact,
level with the American people.
I thought you said something about waiting until your turn to talk. So hold on.
Sling it right back at him.
Look forward to this one right now. So at the end of the day, when you think about the fact that if you want to keep American troops at home, the attack on NATO territory would bring us and our troops in. By degrading the Russian military, we reduce, if not eliminate, an attack on NATO territory.
Finish that exchange. We have to level with the American people. We have to level with the
It's
American
always
people on this
leveling,
issue.
man.
The reality is just because Putin is not Putin's an evil dictator does not mean that Ukraine is good. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties.
A win
that has
for
actually,
Russia is a
that
win
is not
for
true.
China.
We're driving
a win
Russia.
For Russia
excuse
is a
me.
win for China.
Excuse me. If you have
but
a chance,
I forgot you like China. That's
nope,
why you're.
You'll have your chance in just a moment. Yeah. And the hurling personal insults isn't helping. China is the real enemy, and we're driving Russia further into China's arms. We need a reasonable peace plan to end this, especially this is a country
That will never
whose
work.
president just last week
Vivek,
was
if you
hailing a
let
Nazi in
Putin
his own
have
ranks.
Ukraine, that's a green light to China to take Taiwan.
We need a
Peace
reasonable
comes
plan
through strength.
We need a reasonable plan to peace.
Governor Christie.
The Communist Party of China is the real enemy.
Governor Christie.
We need a drill sergeant who just stands on stage with a flog.
Brought China, Russia, and Iran
Keep thinking bigger.
closer together. Are we focused too much on Ukraine and not enough on this threat from the New World Order?
No, they're all connected, Stuart. They're all connected. The Chinese are paying for the Russian war in Ukraine. The Iranians are supplying more sophisticated weapons, and so are the North Koreans now as well, with the encouragement of the Chinese. The naivete on this stage from some of these folks is extraordinary. Look, I understand people want to go and talk to Putin. Guess what? So did George W. Bush. So did Barack Obama. So did Donald Trump. And so did Joe Biden when he said a small invasion wouldn't be so bad. Every one of them has been wrong. And the fact of the matter is, we need to say right now that the Chinese-Russian alliance is something we have to fight against, and we are not going to solve it by going over and cuddling up to Vladimir Putin. Look, Donald Trump said Vladimir Putin was brilliant and a great leader. This is the person who is murdering people in his own country, and now not having enough blood, he's now going to Ukraine to murder innocent civilians and kidnap 20,000 children. And let me tell you, if you think that's where it's going to stop, if we give him any of Ukraine, next will be Poland. Right. This is a guy who said, this is a guy in 1991 who said that was the darkest moment in world history when the Soviet Union fell. Listen, everybody, he wants to put the old band back together, and only America can stop it. Right. And when I'm president, we will.
Governor Burgum, I want to get to Governor Burgum. He hasn't had a chance. I have a question I think you're going to really like.
We want to include him.
Or at least you have experience in it. And we need to talk about America's farmers because there is a foreign policy connection here. The U.S. and China are in this fierce economic competition. It's hurting American businesses, and there is blowback against American farmers because China then targets them in retaliation. How would you, as president, protect American farmers and ranchers from that kind of retaliation from a foreign government like China?
Well, first of all, we've got the best farmers and ranchers in the world right here in America. If they have a level playing field, they can outcompete anyone in the world. But this is part of the larger issue that we're talking about here, which is we're in a Cold War with China. The Biden administration won't admit that. But we're also in a economic war through what we're doing with agriculture and energy. And we're also in a war with them relative to cyber war. We get attacked every day in North Dakota, every state, every school district, our tribes, all being attacked every day by either China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea. And now we've got a Biden administration whose whole policy is appeasement. They're out there, creating the world, making it less safe. $6 billion they traded for 5 people. They've just now set a price on anyone's head who's a tourist from America, who's a student from America, for kidnapping. If you want more kidnapping, put a price on it. And then they're also helping Iran get to have more closer to nuclear weapon, which pushes all of the Middle East closer to China and Russia. The whole thing is absurd. And then, of course, we're going to give Ukraine to Russia, and then we're going to give Taiwan to China and think that's a foreign policy. That will make our nation less less successful, make us more poor. And at the core of all that is energy policy, because China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day. They're the largest importer in the world. And we've had 4 cabinet members from the Biden administration there this summer, and none of them talked about U.S. energy. The first one to go to each of those countries was Kerry to talk about the folly of the climate policy, which is making the world less stable. It's empowering dictators. It's not about climate change that we need worried about. It's about the Biden climate policies that are actually the existential threat to America's future.
Governor Haley, Mexico's
Missed
president,
opportunity with
who
agriculture.
supports sending U.S. military into the country, quote, scoundrels. Mexico is the United States' most important trade partner and border security. You say you will send special operations to attack the cartels in Mexico. So this means boots on the ground, drone strikes.
It means special operations. It's how we deal with our terrorists. And what you need to
Nuclear
do is
weapons.
understand that Mexico's
Duh.
not being a good partner if we lost
Just joking.
75,000 Americans last year. Mexico's not being a good partner if they're letting the cartels get away with what they're getting away with. What we will do is we will make sure that we send in our special operations, and we will take out the cartels, we'll take out their operations, we'll take out anything that's doing it. But we're going to go after China, because China is the one sending the fentanyl in the first place. And we will end all normal trade relations until China stops sending fentanyl. And then we'll do the special operations, and we'll get it from both sides. This is where President Trump went wrong. He focused on trade with China. He didn't focus on the fact that they were buying up our farmland. He didn't focus on the fact that they were killing Americans. He didn't focus on the fact that they were stealing $600 billion in intellectual property. He didn't focus on the fact that they put a spy base off our shores in Cuba. They didn't focus enough on the fact that all of our law enforcement drones in America are Chinese, and we've got all these little surveillance cells. We need to start focusing on what keeps Americans safe. That hasn't happened
Ladies and
in a long
gentlemen,
time. As your president,
it's
I will
Dan.
make sure every American is
Dan.
safe, and we'll do whatever it takes to make that happen.
All right. I want to get to Senator Scott. You're all auditioning for the job as President of the United States. You want to earn these votes. But the world's problems land in the Oval Office. During the presidential debates in the year 2000, neither Al Gore nor George W. Bush was asked about al-Qaeda. Yet, just 1 year later, al-Qaeda's attack on September 11th claimed nearly 3,000 lives. And the farther we get from September 11th, the closer we are to September 10th. Senator Scott, you have no executive branch experience. What has prepared you to protect the nation from a major man-made national security crisis?
One of the things I've had the good fortune of doing is serving on committees in the United States Senate, like the Senate Armed Services Committee. I'm on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, also on the Finance Committee and the Banking Committee. Talk about addressing the issue of fentanyl. I've written the legislation, passed it through the Banking Committee and the Senate that would freeze the assets and sanction the accounts of the Mexican cartels. There are weapons that we have within the arsenal that I was able to get past 23-0 in the polarizing Senate as it is. I've also understood without question the fact that if you look at the details before 9/11, there was information and intelligence that was available that suggested an attack was coming. Having the right intelligence partners with us is key to making sure that we prevent the next 9/11 from ever happening. Having that experience for the last 10 years is really important in getting the job done.
30 seconds to you, Mr. Pence.
Well, I think you asked a question about executive experience, and I think it's vitally important. And I stand before you today as a candidate for president because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. And you hear the fire on the stage tonight. You hear the fire in all of our voices. And it's because Joe Biden is weak in this country, at home and abroad. This is a time for those of us that have the experience, the tested experience, and a commitment to the conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan brought forward in this party of a strong national defense, standing with our allies, standing up to our enemies, supporting limited government and traditional values, need to step forward.
Understood.
Because frankly, our party does face a time for choosing, as I said at the top of this debate, whether we're going to stand on the foundation of that conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan poured, or whether we're going to follow the siren song of populism on more to conservative principles. I'm the most
I'm
experienced,
convinced, David, politicians just love to hear
consistent
themselves
conservative
talk.
in this field, and I'm ready to lead America at home and abroad on day one.
Time for choosing to go to a break. Ilya.
We need to go to a commercial break.
I mean, I don't like hearing Mike Pence talk that much. Real quick, I would like to rag on two answers real quick. First one will be from the first one be from Burgum. Burgum missed his answer was fine, but he missed a huge opportunity to address the farm problems that we're facing in America because he was talking about ranchers, he was talking about farmers, about how we were going to outcompete China. And Haley would go on to say about how China is buying up our land. But why is that land up for sale in the first place? It's because we put up a lot of crappy agricultural policy. We subsidize specific crops that come out. We have the inheritance tax of death. And the fact is, the farmers are not competing, as Burgum is suggesting we can, because our government is messing it up. And I mean, for conservative people, they missed an opportunity to rag on the government for pushing bad policy.
Well,
it also shows you their naivety in reference to farming. For example, no one mentions that the United States under Biden has been subsidizing Ukrainian farmers over $100 million, along with the fact that small businesses, while American farmers, the majority of them are on some type of government subsidy, all right, barely surviving. That was a prime time for someone to bring this up. But again, they don't know, they're not reading or anything. Or even if you're looking about Florida, I mean, most of our orange groves now are just dying off. I mean, there's no help to them. So it's just amazing that no one can pick this stuff up. Then going to, I think, Nikki, she sounded like she's practicing McCarthyism, you know, going to go after China and break up China with Russia and all this other foolishness. That's like another country telling us to cut off our relationship with Israel. How far is that going to get? I mean, they think the American people are stupid.
And we're talking about Haley and foreign policy. That was my second one that I want to go after. This goes to DeSantis, and this goes to Christie as well. We're going to put American troops, we're going to go with the Mexican government, put American troops and wipe out the cartels. We tried it. It worked approximately this much. Because, and this is why back then Vicente Fox tried it. This is why Obrador won't try it again now. Because what they showed...
Look, he did nothing. He was a weak leader.
No. He was a weak leader.
Talk about Vicente and what's going on here.
Please, let me rephrase myself.
No, this is all about, you got a governor on there that has the fourth lowest population in the entire country trying to tell us about all the wonderful things that he did for all 740,000 people. You have look, I love Republicans. I think they're not answering the question. They're all at each other's throats because they're all trying to get that second spot. And it's Christie beating up on Trump. They're finally taking a few punches at Trump. But Nikki, even when she does her worst, she does her best. I think that she, by being in the UN, she knows how it works. She knows where the Russian and the Chinese connection is. I think that if there's anybody who can speak to the foreign policy right now, it's Nikki.
Right, Joel. I find it uncanny that they invoke the name of Ronald Reagan so much, and the Ronald Reagan that we know will definitely not recognize this Republican Party.
Oh, no, look, every note here, David, I'm with you. Every note here is what's not Ronald Reaganish.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, the Republican Party now would ostracize a Reagan-esque candidate. It's just too far to the right.
We forget that Ronald Reagan, he spoke to Gorbachev.
That's correct, yes.
They had a good relationship.
Well,
So,
look,
I
I
mean,
think that we do have to run through the courts and get through that administrative state to make sure we're using the natural resources here at home. But here's the other thing that we can do that's easy.
Forever, Mr. Ramaswamy.
And it addresses the national debt as well as brings down prices. Put people back to work. We are using taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home than to go to work. That is wrong. That contributes to our supply chain crisis. It contributes to inflation. That's the easiest way to unlock this economy. And here's the other thing. We have to put the Federal Reserve back in its place. This is an agency that has gone rogue. So in January 2026, when I have the opportunity as our next commander, we will have a new chairman of the Federal Reserve who places priority on dollar stability. And then most importantly, send packing 75% of the administrative state, reduce the federal employee headcount by 75%, rescind 50% of unconstitutional federal regulations that are shackling businesses, both large and small. I've offered a very clear, practical plan to do it. That's how we unleash the economy. That's how we revive the integrity of a three-branch constitutional republic rather than this technocracy and aristocracy in the administrative state.
Please.
I think one of the signature accomplishments of our administration was in just a few short years, we achieved energy independence. We became a net exporter of energy for the first time in 75 years. But on day one, Joe Biden declared a war on energy, which was no surprise because when Joe Biden ran for president, he said he was going to end fossil fuels. And they've been working overtime to do that ever since. If I'm president of the United States, we're going to open up federal lands. We're going to unleash American energy. We're going to have an all-of-the-above energy strategy. And I have a plan that actually would not only reclaim energy independence, but in 2006, America lost our position as the leading energy producer on Earth. I believe in the next 10 years, with the right policies and experienced leadership in the White House, we can reclaim our role as the leading energy producer on Earth, and that'll grow the American economy for generations to come.
Governor Haley, reaction to that, please.
As the only person who's leading an energy state, could I answer the energy question?
No, Governor Haley.
No.
First thing I'll say is what I saw at the United Nations is energy security is national security. We need a president that understands we have to partner with our producers and make sure that we have their backs. What you don't need is a president who is against energy independence. Ron DeSantis is against fracking. He's against drilling. He's been against, you did it. He always talks about what happens on day one. You better watch out because what happens on day two is when you're in trouble. Day two in Florida, you banned fracking, you banned offshore drilling, you did it on federal lands, and you took green subsidies that you didn't have to take.
You have the right to respond. 30 seconds.
Yeah. I just did a plan out in West Texas for American energy dominance. We're going to choose Midland over Moscow. We're going to choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we're going to choose Bakken over Beijing, and we are going to lower your gas prices. We are going to get that job done because it's important for our national security, it's important for jobs, and that's one of the best ways to drive down inflation.
But we won't do it in
Governor
Florida.
DeSantis, this question is for you.
Our voters enacted a constitutional amendment.
You banned it before they voted.
Doesn't allow. No, it's not true.
You banned it before they voted, and not only that,
it's totally wrong. They voted it in. That's what we did. Onshore, we do it in Florida. We don't have as much as maybe West Texas, but we do it. But that was a constitutional. So that's just wrong. And let's just get real here. My plan will get the job done. We are going to be energy dominant, and that's what's going to happen.
Stop interrupting me, for God's sake.
Let her woman-splain.
Excuse me, we cannot talk over each other. We must respect each other's time. My apologies for that.
I will deport you.
Governor DeSantis, this is your question. The Biden administration is hell-bent on student loan forgiveness, but you say colleges should be on the hook when graduates cannot pay their debt. How does that address the cost of college? The cost of college itself?
Because the colleges are going to have to make a decision. Do we expand the gender studies department, knowing some of those graduates may not have great learning opportunities? No, they're going to focus on the things that really matter. They're going to make different choices. They're going to try to graduate people in 4 years. I also just want to come back to something Dana asked last segment about 9/11, because I was just at the 9/11 memorial with the families. My wife and I were invited. It's very touching to be there, and it affected my life because I ended up joining the military as a result of that. I've been a blue-collar kid, minimum wage in Dunedin,
love the
Florida.
military.
I ended up getting through Yale and Harvard Law School, and somehow came out more conservative than when I went in, and that is not easy
Okay,
to do.
you're cooler than us. We get it.
To make money, but I wanted to serve, and I'll never forget coming back on the plane from Iraq, landing in Coronado, California, North Island, and feeling that breeze off the Pacific Ocean and say, you know what? I am lucky to have been born an American, and I think being able to serve, and I'll be the first president elected since 1988 who's actually served overseas in a war. I think that's going to help me as commander-in-chief to know how you see these issues and understand that there are real lives at stake for people that wear the uniform.
And we know that Governor Haley's husband is serving right now as well, and we thank him for that. Senator Scott, the national debt has nearly doubled in your time in office. The approval rate for Congress is at a mere 19%. If this were a business, you'd probably all be fired in Washington, but you're here tonight looking for a promotion. In 2013, Governor Haley hired you for the Senate. I'd like you to tell her why you should be promoted to CEO of the nation instead of her.
Certainly.
This
One
is
of the
evil.
things I'd say is if you look at our national debt of $33 trillion, I would love to have an opportunity to have this country pass a balanced budget amendment. That would constrain the spending in Washington in the same fashion that it does in every
Dang,
state
she's
in our
giving him
nation.
the
Number
evil
one. Number two,
eye.
if you want to actually reduce our national
You're fired,
debt,
Junior.
You have to grow our economy. In order to grow our economy, you need to create about
Think you're better
10
than me?
million jobs to grow our economy at 5%. You can do that in 3 specific sectors. Number one, the energy sector. We could create between 3 and 3.5 million jobs if we unleashed all of our energy resources. America is we're the richest country if we combine coal, gas, and oil. Why not unleash all of our resources? Number two, we've lost 100,000 factories. 100,000 factories in the last 25 years. If we continued on my Made in America plan, we could bring jobs back to America in a similar fashion that we did when I wrote the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We actually lowered the corporate tax from 35% to 21%, reshored or repatriated $1.7 trillion. We brought the unemployment rates for African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians to the lowest level in the history of the country, and a 70-year low for women.
Governor Haley, would you think you would deserve the
first of
promotion
all,
over
I think,
him?
look, I appreciate Tim. We've known each other a long time, but he's been there 12 years and he hasn't done any of that. He hasn't. They've only given budgets on time in 40 years. He was part of that. He increased the national debt. He voted for the spending.
You voted
he has
for
made sure that the borders are open and they haven't done anything. Look at everything.
They just ruined the South Carolina
12 years.
family.
Where have
Thanks,
you
Don.
been? Where
I
have
voted
you
no on all.
been, Tim?
I voted on
12
most of
years.
those things.
We've
I
waited
have
and
voted
nothing has
Here's
happened.
what
12 years.
Here's the thing that I just find interesting.
Ron, let me finish
All
it
these
first.
guys have said
Here's the
things,
fact.
and I appreciate a lot of the things they're saying.
Nikki
I'm the
Haley-
only one up here who's gotten in the big fights and has delivered big victories for the people of Florida, and that's what it's all about. You can always talk, but when it gets hot in there, when they're shooting arrows at
Against,
you, are you going to be stand up
university
for
students.
parents' rights, keep the state free? Are you going to be able to do all those
And the
things? And in the
gays, of
state of
course.
Florida, because of our success, the Democratic Party lies in ruins. We have won the big fights. We have turned our state into a Republican state. People
Good one.
respond to leadership. I've done
He's
it
right.
while others have talked.
He's right, though.
He's right. The Democrats are
Those
trash.
Democrats.
Just briefly
Yeah.
interject here. We need a
But all of
serious
his successes are in
That's the way
court.
this is around run.
It's
Start
All
all
his losses are
tied up in court.
time for the budget and then see what's actually necessary. There isn't a blue state or a red state in this union that does it. The federal government doesn't do it, but successful companies, including the ones that I've built as a CEO, will do it. And I think we need a CEO
And then sold.
in the White House to
I
get
mean,
that done.
Governor Burgum runs a state. Yes,
Tech
go
questions,
ahead.
you didn't ask the only guy that's been in tech. You have energy questions, you don't ask anything. But I'm just going to say right now, when you say nobody else has done it, the energy plans that have all been announced in the last month by these other folks on stage,
I
we're
did
already
it.
doing it in North Dakota. border plans they're already talking about. We've got troops down at the border flying helicopter missions from North Dakota, from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop transnational criminal organizations from inflicting the invasion and the mass casualties in our state. And on the energy policy, we're already doing it. It's not saying when nobody else done the big fights. North Dakota was leading the charge. We won the battle to get the Biden administration, who was ignoring the law. They were the first administration since Truman that wasn't holding the quarterly required lease sales, and we won that in federal court. WOTUS, we won that in federal court. We're fighting the Biden administration on 20 fronts. To say that nobody's fighting the big fights, just look at the record of what we're doing right now. Energy, economy, national security, I've been talking about it since day one, and now finally good, we're having the conversation about it, but we've got the answer in North Dakota.
Governor Burgum, let's talk big government.
What works for small towns always works for big cities. This is a universally known fact.
1/5 of all new jobs this year have been created by the government. Governor Burgum, you say you want to shrink the size of government, but it has been a century since any president has done that. Why would you be any different?
Well, because we've done it in North Dakota. When I took office, we shrunk the state budget general fund by 27% in the first 4 months I was office, and all the trains still running on time. Why? Because you had a business leader that was actually there. Inside of every government job, there's 10 or 20% of mind-numbing, soul-sucking work that even the state and federal employees don't want to do, and you could engineer that work out of the job. That would free up right there 20% of 2 million civilian employees. And by the way, we've got 10 million jobs open. They'd have plenty to do, and they could be generating taxes instead of being paid by taxes. This is totally possible to do it if you have somebody that understands, because having worked in technology for 30 years, everything we had to do was to be better, faster, and cheaper the next day. That's what we can do in government. That's what we're doing in North Dakota.
All right. Governor DeSantis.
North Dakota.
I want to ask you about something that I think is on a lot of Republicans' minds. This election could come down to less than 50,000 votes in 3 states. Abortion was on the ballot in 6 states in 2022. Republicans lost all of them. Next year, abortion will likely be on the ballot in Arizona. That is a must-win
look how
state.
sad he looks.
Governor DeSantis, how are you going to win over independent, pro-choice voters in Arizona?
Same way we did in Florida. We won the greatest Republican victory in a governor's race in the history of the state, over 1.5 million votes. We were winning places like Miami-Dade County, Palm Beach, that nobody thought was possible
wasn't on the
because
ballot,
we were leading
Ron.
with purpose and conviction. I reject
came
this idea
after,
that
Ron.
pro-lifers are to blame for midterm defeats. I think there's other reasons for that. The former president, he's missing in action tonight. He's had a lot to say about that. He should be here explaining his comments to try to say that pro-life protections are somehow a terrible thing. I want him to look into the eyes and tell people who've been fighting this fight for a long time. My wife and I earlier today were at the gravesite of President and Mrs. Reagan, and I noticed that there was a quote where it says, "Every single person has purpose and worth." We're better off when everybody counts. And I think we should stand for what we believe in. I think we should hold the Democrats accountable for their extremism, supporting abortion all the way up until the moment of birth. That is infanticide, and that is wrong.
Let me ask Governor Christie. Governor Christie, do you think
I will appeal to moderates by
Governor
sticking to
Christie, do
my
you think
position.
that Republicans can do that in Arizona if this referendum is on the ballot there?
Yeah, because I did it in New Jersey, Dana.
Then why are all these other states losing?
Well, because they don't have leaders in those states who are leading the fight the way it should be led. And the fact is, look, I was governor here of the only blue state that's represented up here. This is where the fight is really tough for Republicans. And those are the states that we're going to have to try to win if we're going to win the White House back. And what we did is 14 times, Dana, in 8 years, I vetoed Planned Parenthood funding. 14 times. No one else gets it that much. The Democrats just kept sending it to me, and I kept saying no because I believe in life, but I also believe in states' rights. And I think we fought hard against Roe versus Wade for decades to say that states should make these decisions. So we're going to have those fights in the states. But what you need is a leader who can talk to people and make them understand that if you're pro-life, you have to be pro-life for the entire life, not just the 9 months in the womb. And we talked a lot about fentanyl tonight, and we haven't spoken one moment about treatment. But we need to make sure that for the drug-addicted 16-year-old on the floor of the county lockup, her life is precious too. And we need to be providing treatment to cure this as a disease that it is. If you're pro-life, you got to be pro-life for the entire life. We start talking like that, they're going to do what I did in the
Does
blue
that mean the
state,
death
which was
penalty
get
there,
reelected with
Christy?
61% of the vote and won 70% of independents and 51% of Latinos because I told them the truth from my heart.
Thank you. Vice President Pence, the latest Univision poll found that 73% of Latino voters think the Republican Party doesn't care about or is being hostile toward them, the Hispanic community. Only Governor DeSantis has translated his campaign into Spanish. How will you reach out to Latino voters?
Well, I promise you that we're going to continue to build bridges to every community in this country.
Tacos.
We're going to
And
build
I'm
back
incredibly
better.
proud of that.
I mean,
Tax cut and tax reform bill. I worked on Capitol Hill to help get that bill
We're going to
passed into
open
law.
up the borders.
Largest tax cut in American history. We
Gonna
saw
build
literally the lowest unemployment ever
to the
recorded for
Yucatan.
Hispanic Americans, the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans, 50-year low for women. So I think the President of the United States needs to be a champion for the American dream for every American. It begins with the unborn and the aged and the infirm, and it begins with every ethnic group in this country. And I promise you, if I'm President of the United States, I'll be a champion. I'll be a champion for the American dream, for Hispanic Americans, and for every American. So help me God.
Senator Scott, reaction?
Thanks.
There's no doubt that if you lead by example, it's the best way to get the job done. If you look at my office in the Senate, my chief of staff is the only Hispanic female chief of staff in the Senate. I hired her because she was the best, highest qualified person we have.
You get the
What
gold
we
star,
need
Terry.
are leaders who lead by example. And I will simply say, I would love to finish my conversation with Nikki as it relates to the job that needs to get done. Nikki offered a 10-cent gas tax increase in South Carolina. Talk about someone who has never seen a federal dollar she doesn't like. 10 cents on the gallon in South Carolina. As the UN ambassador, you literally put $50,000 on currency.
You let him know. You got bad information. First of all, I fought the gas tax in South Carolina multiple times against the
There's an echo.
The establishment. And
Thank
you
you.
want to know what that 10 cent was? When they wouldn't pass the gas tax, the establishment and the companies wanted me to do it so much that I said the only way I will
Here's
pass
what you
it
have to
if
do.
you will
All you
give
have
us
to do.
three.
All you have to do is go
if you will
watch
give-
Nikki Haley on YouTube.
If you will give me 3 times the deduction in income tax, then I will look at your gas
So you
tax,
said
which
yes,
is why it didn't
you would
happen.
pass.
Secondly,
Exactly, Ron.
secondly, on the 50 million.
Here is a nice part.
Secondly, on the curtains, do you
I like the Vivek there.
Did you send them back?
It's in the
Did you send them back?
It's the State Department.
Did you send them back?
you send them back? You're the one that works in Congress.
Oh my gosh, you
You get it.
hung them on
Before it even showed up at the residence. You are
Counterpoint, Tim Scott. No, you.
Excuse me, you know
Here's a fact. Here's a fact, though.
I cut taxes. I loaded up our
You wanted a gas tax increase, and then you
Not intend to go ahead like this. In fact, we're about to take a commercial break. We'll have more of the second Republican debate live from the Reagan Presidential Library in just a few moments.
Well, that was a gripping conclusion to that tale.
Yes. Yes.
But frankly, I kind of want to hear from Dan.
What you got for us, Dan?
It's a battle. It's a battle. I liked the heat there at the end. I feel like everybody on stage is very passionate. However, I have my issues with the ducking and dodging of some of the questions. I feel like Fox has done a good job of, holding them accountable. I don't know if you'd get that accountability from the other side. Sometimes I don't know. I mean, I think that they're asking really hard-hitting questions, and I think it's a shame that not all of them are getting answered to the best of the candidates' abilities.
And we won't know how accountable the other side is because there's no primaries.
That's right. Well, you got Marianne Williamson. You have
You have Jennifer. Democrats on our ballot, so they have to
Kennedy.
honor.
There'll be
When they show up.
debates, maybe.
Will there be? I mean,
Yeah,
that's for
and
Democrats.
my ballot has about 28, maybe 30 freaking presidents on it. So even though there's only those people on the stage.
Oh no, there's with Republicans.
So primary, the Democrats do have a primary.
Yeah, but
So
they're
it's
not
already settled.
Yeah, but it's neutered, for the lack of a better term.
If I was Newsom, I would definitely be. I definitely think heavily about putting my name into the hat because the way the Senate's looking right now, the way the president's looking right now, I think we have a lot of job openings coming up, and I don't want Kamala in that job.
You know what's interesting? In reference to Scott, I find him playing up the Hispanic vote tremendously. You know, he's talking about I believe his chief of staff or somebody in his office Hispanic, and he knows very well that the Hispanic population is about 21% of the country right now. That's compared to 13% of African Americans. But also, what's striking is that the American-born Hispanic population has actually decreased, while the immigration or the illegal population of Hispanics has gone up. Somebody needs to take him on task on that because that's very important. So the question comes up: does he really support, an immigration policy that will stop people coming in? Because because he'll benefit from it in a strange way, and all of them will. But again, that shows you they're not reading the literature, and they're not understanding the real stake and the real problems that's happening in America. And I'm very, very shocked by the backwardness and the naivety of Tim Scott.
I really agree a lot, but the thing is, the governor is already shown a great inroads with the Hispanic population, especially the Puerto Ricans, which is amazing that he's doing. And I don't know, we've talked about this in the past, what are those issues that he's resonating with them? It's not just because he's put his literature into the Hispanic, into Spanish. There's something there. And the Republicans are increasing our numbers through Hispanic. So it's interesting. And I like what you had to say.
It would be interesting to find out if any of them support Puerto Ricans being able to vote for the presidency on their island. You see, because right now through the Jones Act they cannot.
Right.
Guessing they wouldn't.
And we're back.
We're back.
Okay.
We're back.
It's been a disservice to Americans. We've lost
now
all
obvious
sense of
that if
candor.
you all stay in the race, former President Donald Trump wins the nomination. None of you have indicated that you're dropping out. So, which one of you on stage tonight should be voted off the island? Please use your marker to write your choice on the notepad in front of you.
I cast my vote for Mike Pence.
Starting now, of the people on the stage, who should be?
I'll
I'm
decline
absolutely
to do that
serious.
with all due respect. I mean, we're here, we're happy to debate, but I think that's disrespectful to my fellow competitors.
Nobody wants to participate.
Let's do some questions. Let's talk about the future of the country.
I'll do it. I want to win this. DeSantis, you're gone.
Oh, Ramaswamy, say
If
it.
you won't answer that question, let me ask you this one.
Yeah.
What is your mathematical path,
Yes.
Governor DeSantis, in order to try to beat President Trump, who has a commanding and enduring lead in this race?
So polls don't elect presidents. Voters elect presidents. And we're going to take the case of the people in these early states. We're going to do it in a state-by-state direction. And why? Because as Reagan said in his day, this is our time for choosing. We are not getting a mulligan on the 2024 election. Republicans have lost 3 straight elections in a row. We were supposed to have a red wave with inflation at 9%. It crashed and burned. Not in Florida, it didn't. We delivered it in Florida. And so we've got to choose right. We've got to win. And we need somebody that's going to be able to serve 2 terms. So in January of 2023, they'll be able to address the nation saying, we turned the economy around, we secured the border, and we fended off the threat from communist China. As your president, I will get that job done.
Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something. Governor Christie, I believe, excuse me, Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something on the card. Who was it?
I'll certainly tell you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Donald Trump?
I think I've been the only one on this stage who's been clear about this. I vote Donald Trump off the island right now. And the reason I vote him off the island,
any of the people on the stage,
you know what? Every person on this stage has shown the respect for Republican voters to come here to express their views honestly, candidly, and directly, and to take your questions honestly. I have respect for every man and woman on this stage because they've done it. Vivek, put your hand down for a second, would you? I've still got time, dude. So chill out. Look. This guy has not only divided our party, he's divided families all over this country. He's divided friends all over this country. I've spoken to people, and I know everyone else has, who have sat at Thanksgiving dinner or at a birthday party and can't have a conversation anymore if they disagree with Donald Trump. He needs to be voted off the island, and he needs to be taken out of this process.
Can we get Vivek 15 seconds?
All right, you got 15 seconds, Vivek.
Look, I have a different view on this. I think Trump was an excellent president, but the America First agenda does not belong to one man. It does not belong to Donald Trump. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, the people of this country. And the question is, who's going to unite this country and take the America First agenda to the next level? When we rallied behind the cry to make America great again, we did not just hunger for a single man. We hungered for the unapologetic pursuit of excellence. So yes, I will respect Donald Trump and his legacy because it's the right thing to do. But we will unite this country to take the America First agenda to the next level, and that will take a different generation to do it.
That does it. I repeat, that does it for the second Republican primary debate live
That was it?
from the Ronald Reagan
We
Presidential
can't be closing remarks because
yeah,
the
look,
news very good at that time.
And we will see you out on the campaign trail.
Have a great evening. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Good night.
Wow, this is horrible.
Yeah, I think Vivek's dad told him what to answer there.
This was horrible.
Okay, thank you.
I gotta admit, the last one was. This one was more exciting than the last ones, but I don't think in the right ways. I think the last one was more cordial, the last one was more orderly, and the last one actually tackled issues more. There was a lot more bickering in this one, a lot more in-party fighting.
Disservice. It was a disservice to the American people. It was pandering. It was attacks. No one really answered the questions, and these are serious questions that they obviously do not want to answer.
Right.
But that's too bad. But we saw a divided party. We saw a divided America, and we saw, politicals who are the political elite, who are part of the swamp, skate by and get by on cheap shots and half truths and garbage.
And about unleashing American energy. Gotta remember that. No candidate mentioned that.
And fentanyl. I haven't heard that in
fossil fuels
so much in 2 hours. For goodness sakes.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of fixating.
It doesn't leave you inspired.
No, and I think it's very clear why Trump can hold his lead despite everything. It's because this is the competition.
He holds it. It's the fact there's so many candidates in there. There's nobody who can challenge Donald Trump inside the party right now.
And that was DeSantis' job, and he failed miserably.
I think DeSantis did as well as to be expected. But here's tonight we have to do for our audience is really come to a conclusion. And I mean, liberal or conservative, You have to say who are winners and who are losers. And I'll start with Dan came in last, so we can start with Dan.
I personally don't like to see, Haley and Vivek and Scott constantly screaming over the top of one another. I think that that in a sense, I mean, you can't realistically stand up there and say that you're going to listen when you can't listen on stage in front of the American people. So I think it's frustrating to see that if everyone on stage claims to respect one another and they all repetitively stated how much respect and how much they agree, but it's a lot of bickering, like we said, and a lot of I kind of liked how the interviewers kind of poked fun at like the drama of like voting someone off the island. I mean, it is a lot of drama for the amount of so-called respect they have amongst each other, and definitely to David's point, just frustrating in the general disservice. So
Who's your winner and loser?
for me, I think like we talked about after the last debate, that I don't think DeSantis totally discredited himself, so I think that's somewhat of a win.
That's
I know that he's the biggest, he has the most potential right now, and I don't think he hurt himself too much. So I would say my winner for tonight is DeSantis.
I think the losers tonight are the American people completely. On issues of Ukraine, the economy, policy, inflation, they did not separate themselves, not one iota, from the Democrats, not at all. And this is a pure sign that we have a real problem in this country and not having real new speakers. I was very, very saddened and shocked that their knowledge of foreign policy was little to none. Right. Their knowledge on economic issues is not there. Their knowledge of even how inflation works. I don't think any of them know the difference between inflation, stagflation, or depression. I don't think they know. You see, and then just using bullet points and cute talk to get their point and over talk, that's not the way. Yeah. And so, in my estimation, the American people are the losers. If there's a clear winner, it was the man who wasn't there, Donald Trump.
I agree. I agree with Dr. White and with Dan in regards to the frustration. The American people were the losers in this. No one separated themselves from the pack. No one showed that they had a real grasp of the kitchen table issues that are facing Americans, and shame on them. America, this was a disservice to her.
I guess Angelina can go.
Appreciate it. So I actually have to agree with you, Dr. White, on the winner was Donald Trump, even though he wasn't there. And now I'm starting to see why he wasn't there. I feel like I was going to steal your answers with the loser because I really liked that with what you were saying about how the American people did lose. Unfortunately, what David likes to say is nobody gives a about your feelings. And I feel that people were just too in touch with their feelings for this debate instead of just promoting the facts. Mm-hmm. So I would have to say the loser would have to be DeSantis because piggybacking off of what you said, David, I mean, his job was to be the person to defeat Donald Trump or at least come close. And at this point, he's not doing that. There's no way that he's going to be the runner-up.
Yeah. And Angelina and Dan, you guys weren't here at the very beginning, but I kind of recapped some poll numbers. DeSantis is failing hard. Like, between last one and this one, he has taken a nosedive, a massive nosedive. So clearly, last debate didn't work for him. the time in between didn't work, and I'm not sure if this one worked well for me either. I mean, I'll say he did better here than
Yeah,
the previous
better.
debate, but that was a rock bottom bar to set.
Right.
And yeah, I was relentlessly disappointed with how repetitive they were.
Yeah.
None of them, like, they all basically were just hand puppets of each other. We need to unleash American energy through fossil fuels. We need school of choice. We're gonna send the military to Mexico and beat the fentanyl, and then we're gonna police and then we're gonna police the world and stick it to China. Heck yeah, USA, USA. There was no, none of them.
No original thought.
No original
or
thought.
policy.
Like, I was so disappointed. Like, my biggest loser, the person I was most disappointed with, was Burgum. He had every opportunity to school the other guys on inflation. He had every opportunity to school the other guys on agriculture. Did nothing. Tim Scott and Mike Pence are constantly out here marketing about how much they're going to change things, but they don't. Mike Pence didn't. Tim Scott isn't. And then there's Vivek. He had the same line. Look, we just got to level with the American people.
Yeah.
We got to level with the American people. We got to level with the American people.
That shtick is getting old.
It's like, it's not a Republican argument or a Democrat argument. It's not a Republican argument or a Democratic argument. But the right answer is Republican. Okay, don't make any mistake here. I'm not bipartisan. I was relentlessly disappointed. My biggest loser was probably Burgum, as I said. Either Burgum or Pence. Pence gave non-answers. And the best moment of the night was when they said, "Okay, but what does this have to do with Obamacare?" And the whole and the crowd went wild. That was the greatest thing.
Fox
If I
Business was the real winner.
Yeah, if there was a winner of the debate, obviously Trump. If somebody on stage won, I mean, Christie didn't get booed as much as he did last time, so I'm giving it to Christie.
Show some love to Christie.
But he has no chance. Don't we worry.
But the moderators could have asked more difficult questions as well to guide them and point them to a certain direction. I think they were giving them softball questions, in my estimation.
They have to give them softball questions. This is Fox. If they didn't, they'd be fired. I mean, come on. This is where Megyn Kelly doesn't work there anymore. So
right.
I can be I am a true Ronald Reagan Republican. Always will be. Love the sucking up that they did tonight. Truly got that. I think Vivek took a little bit too far because he wanted everybody to get along, and he knew that they were coming after him because his record has been, been raked over the coals. The way he's made his money, the business that he's done, the dealings he's done, and the TikTok. I thought that was for me. That was fun. That was fun because you're the only one of us that's on TikTok. You're
an embarrassment to America.
Yeah. So, in the sense, I think I'm going to stay to the stage because Donald Trump. Donald Trump has won this thing unless he has some health issue that takes him out.
If he dies,
and then if he would have died, then literally we'd have to choose one of these people. So we can't help everyone. But everyone can help someone. That's my favorite Ronald Reagan quote. And not one person here tonight helped anybody. So, again, we can't help everyone. For the American people, I would agree, lost. But we can at least help someone. So I'm going to put my love behind Nikki's answers. Because I think she will come out of this with a championship belt. Tim Scott, no, I think he's done a little bit of damage. South Carolina, neither one wins, and that's their home state. And that's because they destroyed it tonight.
You mentioned something about Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan made you feel comfortable during the most difficult time. He made the American feel comfortable and secure and confident. The question is, can any of these candidates as the president make the American people feel comfortable, secure, and protected during the most difficult of
Yes,
times.
he can, because he wants you to, he wants to make sure that we, you know,
Who can?
straight through. Chris Christie. We're gonna make
Oh
sure.
my!
Let's be honest with the people.
Chris Christie, he thinks he's playing on The Sopranos or something, you know.
No, I mean, we've seen what
He's
we
a
what
big
we've
tuna.
what we've seen from a campaign perspective was we had two promising candidates who had potential to come in and challenge Trump: DeSantis, Ramaswamy. DeSantis is nosediving in the polls gradually as his campaign is consistently mismanaged. And Ramaswamy's past is too chaotic that once the media, including some of them even on Fox, got a hold of it, poof, his message is now sinking a little bit.
But look back to the past. I know you're young, but the last time we had a Republican Party that was this filled with candidates, every time the top candidate got up there, they were only up there for about a week or to the next debate.
Right.
Oh no, that's
we definitely eat our own. So
yeah, no.
Well, Ramaswamy, he needs to leave constitutional history alone. He butchers the 14th Amendment, so he needs to just focus on his strong suit, um, and that's a shame. And I think again with him, he has ran his course. I mean, he had a nice sprint, but he doesn't have the staying power to run that full mile because he loses. He has nothing there. Um,
Yeah,
and
he's a
yet,
gimmick.
yeah, I'm sorry.
He's
It's a gimmick, like you said. It's a gimmick.
he's a social media. What do you call it? Hey, he's the latest greatest thing on social media. It's fun to watch him, but you take him serious.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
And something that you said, Dr. White, that I appreciate was the idea of who would make America feel safe. I think a lot of people don't feel safe under Donald Trump. A lot of people in Florida don't feel safe under DeSantis, members of the LGBTQ community, other minorities. A lot of college students, just on the merit of everything that's happening in schools, don't feel safe under him. My grandma, who's like a very classic conservative lady, very smart, she said that Ramaswamy was the kind of guy to sell you insurance. and I was like, you nailed it. He's like, he slaps the roof on the car and says, "This baby." Oh, let me tell you, he's a lot of people just don't trust him. Mike Pence. I've talked with many Republicans who don't trust Pence because he gives so many non-answers and he's so reserved that it's confusing. Chris Christie is just such a bitter character all the time, like about the state of the country, about the state of his party. I mean, his entire purpose of his campaign is just to yell at Trump.
Yeah.
Is just to fight Trump.
But then you have to look at the history there too. I mean, the history there was he thought he was going to be the attorney general. And the past relationship between the prosecution of his dad comes into effect. I mean, it's a mess.
It's a mess.
It's a mess when you get into this. When you get into the minutia. So, beloved, we have. If anybody has something that they want to say to wrap this up, you can't make this shit up. This was the worst debate I've ever seen. This is the show you needed to watch it on because you absolutely can't make this shit up. It was a nightmare. It was the worst 2 hours I've spent viewing something. If it wasn't for the fact that I got to do it with you guys, I would have left after the first.
Because we're all best friends at the end of the day.
Dr. White, we would like to thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Dr. White was my guest, so I am honored. Thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. You guys are so smart, and I'm very, very happy and encouraged by the young people. And in a couple of years, maybe one of you all will decide to run and transform this country back to where it's supposed to be.
Well, he's getting those
Well,
votes.
I'm too old, so.
You got the age of Biden.
I agree with what you said. We've got some really great young people working with JNW, and hopefully we're setting the foundation for their political careers. Who knows? But Dan, Kellen, Angelina, really good people, and we appreciate them also being a part of this special broadcast. Thank you, Dr. White.
Thank you, Dr. White.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
White. So
Who wants to
remember,
send us
everybody.
out?
Remember,
sorry.
everybody. You need to like us. You need to
Like
follow us. You need to do everything you possibly can to get the word out that we're out there doing our job, watching our government.
So
going
that
to
you
check you
don't
out
have
by
to
your
by
social
yourself.
network. And actually, I've been on several shows. This is the best local show that I've been on, and the most truthful. You see, and so I mean, you all are doing some great stuff, and everyone is well read, and I like that. And you have passion for what you believe, and
Yes, we do.
yes. Okay,
Thank you,
gentlemen.
Dr. White. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Dr.
May
White.
God, may God bless all of you.
God
Good
bless
You
night.
too,
God bless
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Not so bad.
That jazz is wicked.